Hello, 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 everyone. Welcome to the Wealthy Trustee webinar. How is everyone doing today? I hope that you guys are doing well. Thank you for joining me this evening. They say yes. Okay, awesome, awesome, awesome. All right, if you guys want to come on camera so I don't feel like I'm the only person on camera, I would really appreciate it. So I have a short presentation for you guys today. Today we're going to be talking about trust. So I'm going to give you some information on how to set up a trust if you are intentional about building generational wealth, you guys, okay? So we're about to get started. I'm going to show some slides, and then after the presentation, I'll open up the floor for Q&A. So does anyone have any questions? Okay, awesome. So let's get started. So give me a moment here. All right, and I am Christina Yvette. So I am a trustee. I have been a trustee for 10 years, you guys. So I established my first trust in 2015, and that was because I had to protect an investment property. So the way that I became a trustee was by way of real estate. So I was actually a registered nurse, and I used that money in order to flip houses. And so with my first investment property, my mentor told me that I had to put that property into a trust. And so I listened to what he said. I set up a trust. I put that property into a trust so that no one could sue me and take the property. That was my fear because it was my first property. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't have no experience, right? Never owned real estate before and never went through renovations before. So I didn't want anyone to be able to sue me because of all of the activity that was happening in the house. There was contractors, subcontractors, roofers, all of this stuff. And if anyone got injured, then they could sue me and take the property. So that's why I decided to secure that first property. And I have been operating within trust since 2015. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to give you a little bit of information about trust, and I'm going to encourage you to do your research, do your due diligence so that you can find out if setting up a trust is the best thing for you and for your family. Okay. So like I said, I have a short presentation. Give me one moment. Let's see here. All right. So we're going to begin with me telling you what a trust entity is. So a trust, one, is an entity. It's just like a business. So you know how a business is an LLC or a corporation, and those are actual entities. A trust is also very similar. It's an entity just like that, okay? You are an entity. I am an entity. A trust is an entity, which means that a trust can do anything and everything that you can do as an individual, as well as what a business can do, okay? So just keep that in mind. And now, how does this entity come into existence? Well, it comes into existence by way of a contract. So there's several different parts to this contract. The two that I want you to be aware of is the declaration of trust, which is where you're declaring what it is and what it is not. So you're declaring that it is a trust that you are creating with this agreement, or what we call indenture, and that it is not a LLC, corporation, partnership, joint venture, or any other type of agreement or contractual entity, okay? So now that we know that the trust is an entity, right? And like I said, the trust can do anything and everything that you can do. So for example, if you could buy a house, the trust could buy a house. If you can build credit, the trust can also build credit, right? So there's no limitations, okay? Now, with that, there's several different parties involved in this contract, okay? The first party is the grantor. Other terms that you might hear is settlor or trustor. So when you go back and do your research after you're done with this webinar, I want you to go ahead and know and be familiar with these terms, okay? So now, who is the grantor? The grantor is the creator of the trust, okay? So that is the individual who created the trust for the benefit of someone else or something else, meaning another entity, okay? And so the grantor is also the initial donor of the trust, meaning they put the first asset into the trust. It could be anything, right? It could be real estate, it could be precious metal, it could be cash money, okay? Now let's talk about the second party involved, which is the trustee. So the trustee is the individual or entity that's going to be controlling the trust, meaning that they are going to be abiding by the rules and regulations that are set forth in the contract. Those rules and regulations, we call them bylaws, and those bylaws have set provisions within them that it is what we call the fiduciary, which is the trustee. It's their responsibility to make sure that everything is being carried out the way that it is intended and the way that is spelled out inside of the trust contract, okay? So, like I said, they're the controller of the trust. So what do? They operate the trust on a day-to-day basis, and they have full control over the assets that are placed inside of the trust, meaning they can sell them, they can buy assets, they can liquidate or sell the assets, they can move them around, whatever it is that they deem necessary for the trust estate, okay? Now, the next person or party involved is the beneficiary. So the beneficiary is the inheritor of the trust, meaning that that is the individual or entity that's going to inherit the assets that are placed inside of the trust once the trust no longer exists, okay? So if the trust is terminated, all those assets need to be removed from the trust and they need to be disposed of and distributed to the beneficiaries, okay? And so those individuals, they are going to be benefiting from the trust and receiving distributions, receiving gifts, and ultimately receiving the assets that are placed inside of the trust, okay? So these are the three main parties that are involved in the trust contract. So please get familiar with these parties. So now there's different types of trust. There's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of different types of trust, okay? You have to do your research and your due diligence to make sure which one is the best type of trust for you. What I'm going to do is I'm going to give you these categories of what each trust falls under so that you can become familiar with the different categories involved with the types of trust, okay? So the first category that I want to give you is express versus implied. An express trust is a written trust. That is the trust that is in a contractual style, okay? So it's on paper, black and white in a contract, okay? Now, the other type of trust is an implied trust. So that is a verbal trust, right? A verbal agreement that was made between the grantor and the trustee, okay? The next category that I want to give you is simple versus complex. So a simple trust is just shorter in nature, meaning that there's less pages, there's less bylaws, rules, regulations, terms, conditions, and provisions. And the other one is a complex trust, right? So with the simple trust, the trustee is required to give distributions. But with a complex trust, because it's longer in nature, because there's more provisions in it, the trustee is not required to give distributions, okay? The next type of trust the next category that I want to tell you guys about is discretionary versus non-discretionary. So with a discretionary trust, it means that the trustee is able to make decisions for the trust that are outside of the trust bylaws. So for example, if the trust bylaws doesn't mention anything about crypto, but the trustee feels like it is in the best interest of the trust to go ahead and have a crypto holding, the trustee is able to do that because they have a discretionary trust. Versus on the contrary to that, where you have non-discretionary, which means that the trustee are not able to make decisions that are not clearly spelled out inside of the trust contract. So they have that form of limitation, okay? Now, the next category that I want to tell you guys about is statutory versus non-statutory. So with a statutory trust, it means that all of the state statutes and codes are embedded inside of the trust. So if you have to pick a domicile for the trust, meaning that you have to pick a state where the trust is going to be established. And so every single state has its own state laws, okay? We call them statutes and codes. And with a statutory trust, those state statutes and codes are embedded inside of the trust, which means that it is required for a statutory trust to be registered with the state, right? With the state, particularly your county, through the clerk of courts, okay? And so that means that your trust becomes a part of the public records, okay? So it's not private, okay? And the state has a jurisdiction over your trust entity and can regulate it because the codes are in there, okay? So, and you are limited to only being able to utilize that trust in that state. So that is what a statutory trust. Now, on the contrary to that, you have a non-statutory trust. With a non-statutory trust, it means that there are no state statutes and codes that are embedded inside of the contract, which means that you do not have to register it with the state, so your contract actually remains private, and you can utilize a non-statutory trust in all 50 states, not just one state, okay? So you have less limitations with the non-statutory trust. Now, the last category that I want to give you is revocable versus irrevocable. So with a revocable trust, that means that the grantor and the trustee are the same individual, right? And so that means that the grantor is able to make changes to the trust. So they're able to terminate the trust, they're able to amend or change the trust, they're able to take assets out of the trust, they're able to remove the trustees and the beneficiaries, okay? So because the grantor has all of that power and control, the assets that are placed inside a revocable trust are not protected at all, okay? So, so that means that if somebody were to sue the trust, then they could take the assets that are inside of that trust, okay? So that is with a revocable trust. And on the contrary to that, you have an irrevocable trust. With the irrevocable trust, that means that the grantor and the trustee are not the same person. So the grantor has no power, no control, and the trustee has all the power and all the control. So because they're not the same person, then creditors cannot come after the irrevocable trust. So creditors for the grantor, creditors for the trustee cannot penetrate through that irrevocable trust. So your assets are going to be fully protected with an irrevocable trust, okay? So out of the two, right, assets are fully protected with irrevocable, and they're not protected at all with a revocable, okay? Because the revocable trust is seen as your alter ego. It's seen as you, right? And an irrevocable trust, it's not. So it's seen as a separate entity. You are not the trust is not you, okay? So with the irrevocable trust, because the grantor and the trustee are not the same person, the grantor cannot terminate or make any changes to the trust. They cannot move assets out of the trust. They cannot remove the trustees or the beneficiaries, okay? So that is the main difference between those categories. So what I want you to do is I want you to do your due diligence, and I want you to determine what is the best type of trust for you and your family. So how do you actually create a trust, right? So the first thing you need is to determine which trust is best for me. And so out of all of the categories that I just mentioned to you, what I recommend is that you have a trust, you establish a trust that is an express trust, that is discretionary, that is complex in nature, that is non-statutory, and that is irrevocable. That is what we call a bulletproof trust. So that trust is the trust that is going to hold up in court. That trust is the trust that is going to fully protect your assets in the event that somebody comes after you or that they come after the trust, okay? So let's continue on. So number 2, right? So now that you've determined what type of trust that you want to create, then you need to transition to number 2, where you determine the actual name of the trust, right? So remember, this is an entity. Like I said, it's just like a business. So you know how you name an LLC or a corporation, you're going to do the same thing with the trust, okay? And now you're able to do business, or you're able to conduct or operate this trust under that name. So you're going to choose a name for the trust. 2 things that I need you to be aware of. First is that you never want to name the trust after yourself. Why? Because we are setting up the trust for asset protection, which means that we want some form of privacy. And so you don't want anyone to know that you're associated with the trust. That is what we call need to know information. So because you don't want anyone to know that you're associated with the trust, you're not going to name the trust after yourself, okay? So if your name is John Smith, you're not going to name the trust the John Smith Trust, okay? Now, using the last name is very common. So for example, Smith is a very common name. So if you wanted to say Smith Legacy or Smith Estate, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's you, okay? So using the last name is good, but do not use the combination of first and last, okay? The second thing is do not have your trust end with the term trust, okay? Sometimes people decide to do it and it's not terrible, but remember, we want what we call obscurity, right? So we want not to be in the public eye. So we don't want our trust to be visible. We don't want anyone to know what assets that are placed inside of our trust, right? We don't want anyone to know that we have a trust, right? And so in the name of the actual trust entity, you don't even have to have the word trust in the name, okay? So for example, right, if it's Smith Estate, right, you don't have to name it Smith Estate Trust, right? It can just be called Smith Estate. And then they're going to wonder and know, well, what is this? Is this a business, right? What type of entity it is. And so you want to allow that space, okay? So now that you have determined the type of trust that you want and you've named your trust, what you want to do is you need to appoint the different parties that's going to be involved in your trust, okay? So you're going to appoint someone to be the grantor, which is the creator of the trust. You're going to appoint someone to be the trustee. So I recommend that you appoint yourself if you want to have full control over the assets that are placed inside of the trust. You're going to appoint your beneficiaries. So typically your beneficiaries are your children. They could also be other entities, okay? And then you're going to appoint your successor trustee. So your successor trustee is the individual that's going to be taking over after you in the event that something happens to you. Meaning that in the event that you expire, in the event that you decide that you want to resign, or if you become incapacitated, the trust needs to continue to operate. So you need to list a successor trustee, which is someone who's going to remain in that dormant position until you have stepped down, and now they're going to step up and continue to operate the trust where you left off, okay? It's so vitally important for you to have a successor because if you don't, then it could lead to other things, okay? Now, let's talk about number 3, which is actually creating the trust agreement. Remember, I told you the trust is a contract, okay? So that means that you have to actually create the contract. So what initially happened is you had a verbal agreement between the grantor and the trustee, and that was then expressed into a contractual entity, okay? So that means that it was placed into a contract, all of these rules and regulations. And so now that you have finalized the contract with all of the terms that you want, with the rules, regulations, how you want the trust to operate, right? One of the provisions that we put are spendthrift provisions, meaning that you want to control the money from the grave, right? So you want to be able to let the beneficiaries know what they can spend the money on and what they cannot spend the money on. You don't want them spending the money on drugs or, lavish items, things like that, right? You probably want them to spend it on, I don't know, education, real estate, and other investments, and maybe entrepreneur endeavors, right? And so you are able to put those provisions inside of the contract. So now that you have finalized your contract, now what's going to happen is we're moving on to step 4, which is you need to notarize the trust. That is how the trust becomes legal, you guys, okay? So it needs to be notarized by a notary. And what the notary is going to do is they're going to witness your signature. So there's 2 signatures that are required in order to legalize the trust. The first signature that's required is the grantor's signature as the creator. The second signature that's required is the trustee, which is the fiduciary, okay? So what they're doing is they're accepting their position and they are saying that, yes, I'm going to abide by these rules and regulations, and I'm going to carry it out to the T that is set here on this contract, okay? So now that that the grantor and the trustee have signed, the notary is going to sign and they're going to place their seal. Once they place their seal, this becomes a legal document, which then becomes a legal entity. So now that it is a legal entity, guess what happens? You guys are able to start operating the trust, which is exactly what you want. You want to operate the trust because there's a lot of benefits to actually having a trust. And I'll go into those in just a moment, okay? So now that you have legalized the trust and you're going to start operating, then what is the first thing that you want to do? Well, the first thing that you want to do is you want to open up a trust bank account. That is what we call a trust fund, you guys, okay? So whenever you hear those terms, which I know you have, that's why you're on the call, because you've heard the term trust fund, baby, trust fund, trust estate, all these things. You've heard them before and you're like, okay, well, let me take a peek behind the corner and see what this is, right? So what you need to do is there's a couple things that you need to bring with you, okay? So the first thing is there's two things that you need to bring with you. The first thing is a certificate of trust. So what is a certificate of trust, right? The certificate of trust is proof of identity that the trust exists. So just like how I mentioned earlier in the call, how you are an entity, right? If somebody asks you for proof of identity, what are you going to produce? You're going to produce a driver's license, which is a little instrument that you're using, okay? And so with this instrument, what does it have? It has your name, it has your address, it has an identification number, and it has other things that are used to describe you, okay? So now the instrument that we use is a certificate of trust to prove that the trust is a legal entity that can be operated here in the United States, okay? And so what is on the certificate of trust? The name of the trust, right? The grantor, the trustee, the address of the trust, a 9-digit identification number from the IRS, right? All of those things are inside of the certificate of trust. So you're going to bring that with you, and then the EIN number, which is the employer identification number that's going to be issued to you by the IRS for banking purposes. It is very challenging to get a trust fund account without an EIN, okay? It's not required, but it's recommended, okay? So those are the two things that you're going to bring with you, a certificate of trust as well as that EIN confirmation letter that you're going to be issued, okay? So now you're going to go to the bank. So you can set up you can go to any financial institution that offers a trust account, okay? Not every single bank offers a trust account. So do your research and your due diligence. I'm always going to tell you to do that. I highly encourage that you do that, okay? So not every single institution offers a trust account, okay? Now, the types of financial institutions that you can establish a relationship with is a bank, a credit union, or a brokerage, okay? So those are the three types that will offer trust accounts, okay? And now the type of account that you can get is a checking account, a savings account, a money market account, or a brokerage account, okay? Or what we call a cash management account. So those are the types of accounts that you can open up for the trust. Those are considered trust funds where, guess what? Where funds that belong to the trust are held, okay? So that's why they call it trust fund. So now that you have found out there's different steps that you need to take in order to open up the trust account, it's very important that you open up the trust account before you go to transfer assets into the trust, okay? So you have officially opened up this trust account. Some banks will they're going to require that you have like a minimum deposit, okay? So you're going to want to meet that minimum. Some banks are $100, some banks are $300, $500, just depending on the bank that you establish a relationship with, okay? So then you just want to decide how much you want to fund the trust with, and you're going to do proper documentation, okay? Now let's move on to number 6, which is transfer assets into the trust. This is the most important step, you guys. You actually transferring assets into the trust. Your assets are not fully protected if they are not held in the name of the trust, you guys, okay? So what does that look like, right? A lot of you guys, right now, you are operating under what we call ownership, which means that you have all of your assets in your personal name, okay? So you have your primary residence, you have cars, you have bank accounts, cash, you have, all kinds of assets in your name. And so what you need to do is, because you're at risk, right? Because if anybody decides that they want to sue you, they can take those assets. What you need to do is transfer those assets into the trust. So there's two things that you have to do in order to complete this. I have seen it so many times where people will set up a trust and they'll never place their assets into the trust. And then their family is left squandering because they didn't finish the final step. And so that is what you need to do. You need to finish the final step, okay? If you've gone as far as setting up the trust, legalizing it, and funding it, then you need to transfer assets into it, okay? So what does that look like? Well, let's just say that you have a primary residence, right? So usually that is our biggest investment, is our home, right? Our primary residence, where we have a 30-year mortgage, where our children live. And so with this property, right, that is the asset that you want to make sure that it is safe and secure. So when you purchase this house, you were issued a deed, okay? And so what you have to do is you have to redeed that property. So you have to deed it over from your personal name into the name of the trust, okay? So that's how you're going to get it into the trust. So the first thing that you want to do is you want to list it in the trust documents. So inside of the trust documents and one of the schedules, you're going to list all your assets. You're going to put that piece of real estate as one of the assets that belongs to the trust, okay? So that's the first step. The second step is that you're going to transfer the deed, meaning that you're going to create a new deed, and it's going to be from your personal name into the name of the trust. And then you're going to sign it, and it's going to be notarized. Once it's notarized, then you're going to submit it to the clerk of courts, specifically the county recorder's office. They're going to receive your new deed. They're going to record it in the public records. They're going to hand it back to you. And now it's going to represent on the county's website, as well as the public records, that the new owner of this property is the trust. So you are no longer the owner, the trust is the owner, which is exactly what you want, okay? So let's continue on. So what can a trust actually protect you from? A trust can protect you from bankruptcy, from divorce, from foreclosures, from heavy taxations, from lawsuits, and from probate, okay? So we're just going to go through a few of these, which are like the most common ones. So one of the most common ones is divorce, right? Times have changed and people have changed. And so a trust can actually protect you from a divorce. How and why, right? Well, the how is, you are not the trust is not you, which means that if you have a trust and you have assets in the trust, let's just say that you have a house, you have six figures, you have jewelry in that trust, you have, whatever else, crypto, in that trust, right? That trust, all of the assets that are inside of that trust cannot be pulled into your divorce. Why? Because a divorce is a transfer of wealth, unfortunately. And a lot of us, we don't know that it is a lawsuit between the spouses, okay? And so with this divorce, right, everything that's in your personal name is what's going to be included in the divorce, meaning that everything that's in your bank account that's in your personal name, your 401k, your pension, your personal holdings, like if you have any other investments like stocks and bonds and things like that, and then all of the houses or pieces of real estate that are in your personal name. So every single thing that's in your personal name is going to be included in the divorce, right? So the way that a trust protects you is because everything that's inside of the trust is protected, and nothing that's inside of the trust can be pulled into the divorce. The divorce is between you and that individual. And so everything that's in your individual name is what is pulled into the divorce, okay? So that's how a trust can actually protect you. Oh, somebody's writing on my screen. Okay, thank you. So, that is one example, you guys, okay? Let's move on to the next one. Hold on one second. Okay, so the next one that I want to tell you guys about is briefly is heavy taxation, right? So there are a lot of taxes, right? The IRS taxes you when you die. I don't know if you knew that, but guess what? The IRS taxes you when you die. So there's a lot of taxes. You have capital gains taxes, you have inheritance tax, you have death tax, right? And then just your regular income tax, right? So what a trust can do is the trust can actually help you reduce all of those heavy taxations that you would be subject to if you were having these assets or this income in your personal name, okay? The next one is lawsuits. So here in the United States, guess what? This is a sue-friendly country, you guys, which means that everybody wants to sue you. So who wants to sue you? Your neighbor, your coworker, your employer, your brother, your sister, your best friend, whoever has a chance to sue you, they're going to, okay? That is just the nature of the beast, especially here in this country. So you always need to be prepared in the event that something like this happens. I will tell you this, every single person that I've spoken to that has been sued, they didn't know that they were going to get sued. They did not anticipate that they were going to get sued, okay? And I'm pretty sure that you're in that same position. So my advice to you is don't wait until you're getting sued in order to protect yourself, okay? You need to protect yourself now, okay? So what does this look like? Well, one example that I like to give is, let's just say that you are an entrepreneur, okay? So you own a business, and with your business, right, you're selling, let's just say you're selling candles. I like this example. So you're selling candles, and you sold a candle, you're selling candles online, and one of your clients say my house burned down, and they're going to sue you because it was your candle that lit the house on fire, right? So now you have your client that is suing you. Well, what can actually happen, right? And so let me ask you this question, right? This business that you have, right? It's an LLC. So what does LLC stand for? A lot of us, we should know this. What does LLC stand for?
A limited liability company.
Yeah, that's good. Okay, who?
Limited liability.
Yes. Okay, yeah, it is. It is limited liability company, okay? So what does it sound like though? Like you hear it in the actual name. What does it sound like to you?
Partial.
They're partial liable.
Exactly. Oh my gosh, you guys, y'all just passing with flying colors. So you are absolutely correct. A lot of people, they have bought into the misconception that they are fully protected if they have an LLC and everything's in the name of the LLC, but you can hear it in the actual name. Limited. Limited doesn't mean full. Okay. So if you have an LLC and the company has, like he said, partial, right? If the company has half of the liability, who do you think has the other half of the liability?
You do.
We do.
Exactly. So you have the other half. So you actually have equal the amount of liability as the company. So if you have limited liability and the company has limited liability and there was some form of litigation, that is happening, I'll go ahead and explain this to you guys, then, it can be challenging. So back to my example, right? You got a candle company. The client says that the house caught on fire and it's your fault, right? And so now they're going to go after your LLC, your limited liability company. So what is the first thing that they do? Well, everything that entails your limited liability company is a part of the public records. So all they have to do is go down to the Secretary of State's website, do a quick little business search and put the name of the company, right? And guess what? Right there is all of the information pertaining to the owner, right? Just depending on the Secretary of State's website, right? So, so with that information, they're able to see the name of the owner, they're able to see address, emails, all kind of stuff, EIN numbers. It just depends on what's available with that particular Secretary of State, okay? So now they know who to sue. So now they're going to go after your LLC, your limited liability company, okay? So let's just say that it's dragged into court, okay? So now now the business is being sued, and let's just say that the business loses the lawsuit. It was your candle that caused the fire, right? And so now your business is lost the lawsuit, right? And so now after going through litigation, there's a judgment against your company, right? So if that limited liability company is not able to fulfill that judgment, guess who it falls on? It
Me.
falls. Exactly. So what will happen is the judge will pierce through that corporate veil. The corporate veil is that little tiny bit of protection that you thought you had with your LLC. So the judge is going to pierce through that corporate veil and go after you, the authorized member of that LLC. If they go out after you, the authorized member of the LLC, that means that they can now go after you. So that means that they can garnish your wages. They can garnish your entire bank account. They can also seize your assets, meaning your house where you and your spouse and your kids live, right? You can lose it all. We've seen it so many times. Why? Because people don't think that they're going to get sued, especially when they're in business, right? So you can't be thinking like that. You need to be with a full armor on, ready to go, ready for war if somebody tries to sue you. You need to be prepared, okay? And your assets need to be protected. So now, now, what is the best way to actually handle this, right? Because you don't want to be liable for your business. That is the wrong way to be structured, okay? Like these big time entrepreneurs, right? Like Jeff Bezos. Do you think that he is liable for Amazon? No, right? So you want to be properly structured, which means that you do not want to be the owner of your business. You don't want your name and address and all your personal information to be available on the public records, on the Secretary of State. So what you want is for a trust to own your business, okay? That is the best way for you to be structured, because now the trust is going to be the middle entity between you and the company in the event that something like this happens, okay? So what does that look like? Well, that looks like now what you're going to do is you're going to do an amendment to your articles. So you're going to remove your name from the Secretary of State. And now you're going to put the trust as the owner of that LLC. All right. And so now in the event of a lawsuit, in the event that you have a judgment for your LLC and the judge decides to pierce through the corporate veil and go after the authorized member, guess who they're going to go after? They're going to go after the trust. That trust particularly is operated in a very unique way, which means that it's operated as a holding company, which means that it doesn't have any assets in the event of a lawsuit. Okay, the only asset that it has is the LLC. The LLC is the asset for the trust. Okay, if we're conducting business. Okay, so it's a very unique trust that we use. It's a business trust. Okay, so if that were to happen, then guess what? There's no funds to garnish. There's no assets to seize. And you are not liable at all, okay? Because you're not liable for anything that's owned by the trust. So that is the way that you want to be structured. You have to think about structure. It's super important, especially if you're a business owner. It's just so important. So if you're not structured like this, guess what? Please plant a seed in your mind that you need to get restructured now in 2025, okay? To protect you, your family, your income, your assets in the event of something like this. Now let's move on to the next one, you guys. I'm getting all hyped up and excited. So let's talk about probate, because probate is absolutely inevitable. And a lot of people don't know what it is. So I'm going to just quickly ask a question here. So all right. Remember, we're talking about your primary residence. This is that beautiful house with the white picket fence that you have a 30-year mortgage, that your children live in, that you live in, right? With this primary residence, let me ask you this question. Right now, today, that house is in your personal name, right? Your name is on it. If you didn't wake up tomorrow, how do you expect that house to be transferred to your children's name? This is a question and I need an answer.
It will.
can't.
It can't, because it will go to the courts, and then the courts will decide, and then your family members will have to decide and go and fight, and then you won't. It will be tied up in the courts until somebody come forth with paperwork stating otherwise.
Or they drain you in courts with the money where you lose the asset completely.
Absolutely. Thank you guys for coming off of mute, participating and explaining that to us, because you guys you are absolutely right. And there's a lie that we were bought into. We bought into this lie that if I set up a will, or even if I don't set up a will, right, my children will automatically get my house. That's literally what we are thinking. That's what we have in our mind. And we're walking around here every single day thinking that we're secure, thinking that if anything happened to us, oh, my house, I have 3 kids, my house is automatically going to go to my 3 kids. That is the biggest lie ever. I guarantee you, 9 times out of 10, your children will never even see the house. There are so many times where the house will end up in foreclosure and it'll go right back to the bank because you didn't have your affairs in order and you didn't even tell your children that you had a mortgage. Why? Because you don't have your documentation all in one centralized location. Because you don't have an estate. Because the house wasn't protected from foreclosure because it was in a trust, right? And so now, even though you know I have 2 kids, I want my house to go to my 2 kids. Even though you know that, you're still going to drag them through the probate process, which is highly unfortunate. So I will tell you this right now, because I see it every single day. Your children are losing their inheritance. Your house is being auctioned on the county clerk of court's steps, or it's being sold to pay back hospital bills, the nursing home, and whatever debt that you racked up at the end of life. Why? So why is it that you're allowing this to happen? Why is it that you're allowing, it's just, it's happening, right? And it's because we don't know. It's because we don't know. We want our children to receive our assets. We think that it's automatic, so that's an issue. We're not educated. We don't know what the whole process looks like. So we just think automatically, right? And so, like I said, our children, they are losing their inheritances happening every single day. We have the power to stop that. The way that we're going to stop that is by creating our own estate. You have to create your estate now while you're living versus you not having a trust, all of your assets remaining in your personal name. Guess what happens? If all of these assets are in your personal name, meaning your house, your car, the cash money that you have in your bank account, your 401k, your stocks, all of these things, right? If they're in your personal name and you didn't wake up tomorrow, and let's just say that you have a will, right? A will is a wish list, you guys. It is just a page with instructions where you're literally saying, I wish my daughter will get my house. I wish my son will get the 6 figures in my bank account. That is what the will is. A will cannot own anything. So a will is actually going to be carried out where? In court. So you're automatically putting your children in a position where they're going to go to court when all of that can be avoided. So, like I said, if you have a will, or even if you don't have a will and you have all of these assets in your personal name, then guess what happens? Because you didn't have your affairs in order, the state where you're a resident, meaning let's just say you are, a resident of Texas. Texas is going to create an estate for you because you didn't do it yourself. So at the end of the day, guess what? You're going to have an estate anyways. You're going to have one regardless. You just have to choose, am I going to create my estate now while I'm living and put my house in there and put my money in there? Or am I just going to do nothing? And when I die, Texas is going to do it for me. That's up to you, okay? But if you have heirs, if you're intentional about building generational wealth, if you actually want the assets to go to them, if you want them to avoid the court system entirely, then you want to create your estate while you're living. And why not? Why are we not doing this? Because we're not informed, right? So this is the way the probate process works. I need to break this down to you. This is the most important thing out of this entire webinar tonight, okay? This is the way the probate process works. So like I said, you have all of these assets, right? You didn't wake up tomorrow. So now, because you didn't have your affairs in order, right? Now the state of Texas is going to create an estate for you. And now guess what they're going to do? They're going to transfer all of your assets into the estate. They're going to transfer your house into the estate. And now the estate is going to say, your name, right? So the John Smith estate, right? Now, they're going to transfer your house, the cash that you have in the bank, your car, whatever assets, your stocks and bonds, okay? Now they're held in the estate. That estate that was created by the government, it's going straight into probate, okay? So that's the court, that's what it's called, it's probate court. Now, it needs to be represented by a probate attorney. So now your estate has representation, okay? And it's going through the probate courts, right? So now what is the first thing that the judge decides to do? Well, when you transitioned, you had debt. You had credit card debt. You had hospital bills, student loans, all kind of stuff, right? A lot of us, we don't think about this. Do you know how much hospital bills you rack up at the end? Or if you end up in a nursing home, do you know how expensive that is, right? We don't know. We don't know what we don't know, okay? So prepare now because you don't know. So there's so much debt that you accumulated or had at the end of life, right? The first thing that the judge decides to do is pay off all your liabilities. The credit card companies are all getting paid down to zero, right? Your student loans that you had for 50 years are getting paid down to zero. Medicare is getting reimbursed. Medicaid is getting reimbursed. The ICU bills at the hospital, the emergency, everybody's getting reimbursed, right? And they're getting reimbursed by what? By the cash that you had inside of your checking account, okay? By whatever is inside of the estate. So sometimes, and I've seen this time and time and time again, that the estate doesn't have enough cash to cover all that debt. So guess what the judge does? He says, you have to sell the house because Medicare needs $125,000. So now your children, you have to understand what they're going through. Your children, they just lost the most important person in their entire life, which was you. But now they're being dragged into probate court. And so now they have to fight for mom and dad's house in probate court if they wanted to keep it. And unfortunately, sometimes they fight each other because they can't agree, right? So you're dragging your children through this entire process when instead they should just be grieving, right? So now the judge decides that they want to go ahead and sell the property in order for the medical bills to be covered, unfortunately, right? So now what happens, right? Well, the liabilities are taken care of, so all your debt is paid off. The probate attorney is going to get his or her fees. Then the probate court is going to collect and deduct their fees from your estate. Whatever is left over is what your children get. Your children get the leftovers, right? And that is highly, highly, highly unfortunate because you know right now today that you want your children to receive their inheritance. You know you want them to get the house. You know you want them to get the money, the retirement, the pension, all this stuff. You know you want them to get it, but you don't have the right paperwork. You don't have documentation. You don't have your affairs in order. You're not properly structured for that, right? So that is the probate process. Now, let me give you a scenario of what it would look like if you didn't have to go through probate. So everyone has to go through probate. Me, you, everyone, right? We have to go through probate if we're holding assets in our personal name, which is what we're doing, right? The only way to avoid probate, there's only one way to avoid probate, which is if you set up a trust estate and your assets are held in that trust estate, then you avoid probate completely. So that means that your children don't actually have to go through probate because you set up a trust. So let's just say that you set up a trust, you placed all your assets in the trust, and you didn't wake up tomorrow, right? Guess what happens? Everything is going to remain intact. Your successor trustee, which is the individual that's taking over after you in the event that something happens to you, right? Remember, you listed someone that is going to take over. Your successor trustee takes over. They continue to operate the trust the first day, right? So they continue to operate the trust, they continue to manage the assets, and nothing has to go through probate court if you go down this route. And that debt that you had, that debt dies with you. So the hospital bills, the student loans, the credit cards, all of that debt dies with you because that debt is in your personal name. And those creditors cannot come after your trust estate. So that is the position that you want to put your family in. You want to put them in the position where they're going to receive 100%. The government doesn't have to put their fingers and toes in your assets and control everything and dictate if your children will receive it or if they won't. Okay, so let's continue on. We got a couple more slides and then we're landing this plane. This is a wealth building formula, you guys. So a lot of us, we are intentional about building generational wealth. And so this is a formula that I want to share with you guys on how to build wealth utilizing a trust estate, okay? Now, we have 3 pillars here. We have structure, credit, and invest. So let's talk about structure because structure is very important. And I had touched on it earlier, and I want to go ahead and talk about it a little bit more. So with when it comes to structure, right, you need to have multiple entities within your structure. I'm a firm believer that you need to have for-profit entities and nonprofit entities within your structure, okay? Now, if you have for-profit and nonprofit entities, then you are going to be properly structured. The trusts that I recommend are the following, okay? So I recommend 3 different types of trusts: a business trust, a private family trust, and a tax-exempt nonprofit trust, okay? So let's talk about the first, which is the business trust. I touched on it earlier. The business trust is actually going to be this type of trust. You will operate it 2 different ways, okay? So you have to determine how you want to operate the trust. So you can either operate it as a holding company or you can operate it as a traditional business. So let's just say that you want to operate it as a traditional business. That means that, for example, if you wanted to start an e-commerce company tomorrow, right? You don't have to go down to the Secretary of State and actually open up an LLC. You can just set up a business trust specifically to operate that particular business, okay? The business trust can have employees, can have assets, and it's a for-profit entity, okay? So that's one way, so it's fully operational. The second way is you can actually operate it as a holding company. So if you operate it as a holding company, that means that what you're going to do is you're going to specifically utilize it to where it's going to be non-operational, meaning that the only reason that this entity is used for is to hold other legal entities. So those other legal entities are LLCs and corporations. So the business trust is going to be a holding company that's going to own your LLCs. Remember, I gave you the example earlier that the business trust is going to be the authorized member of the LLC. So you have to make those changes with the Secretary of State. Once you set up your business trust, you're going to amend your articles of organization. That's the articles that you actually use in order to form your LLC. You have to make changes to the article to remove your name off of that business, because that then removes your liability. And then you're going to add the business trust as the new authorized member. And now it's going to reflect on the Secretary of State, and you're no longer going to be liable for that business. You do not want to be liable for the business. So you're going to have an entity own another entity, okay? So that is the way for you to be properly structured, especially if you are intentional about building generational wealth, okay? So now, these entities are, like I said, the business trust and the family trust, those are for-profit entities, okay? So let's just say that the LLC, right? The LLC has generated $100,000, right? This is for simple, simple math, okay? So it's generated $100,000. Well, the LLC is a pass-through entity, right? So whatever after it's done its deductions and stuff like that, what is going to happen is any of that income, right, is going to pass through to the owner. So that means that that money is going to go to the business trust, okay? So let's just say for simple purposes, right, that the 100,000 that came in, all of it went to the business trust, okay? So now we've done a complete write-off, right? So 100% of that 100,000 was written off, right? And it went straight to the business trust. So now the business trust received 100,000. It's a for-profit entity, okay? So the things that I love about these entities is that you actually spend the money first and you're taxed on the leftovers. I'm going to say that again. You spend the money first and you're taxed on the leftovers, which means that that money that has come into the business trust, right, 100,000, what you're going to do is you're going to spend it first. So you're going to spend it on what we call administration expenses and operating expenses. It's OPEX, okay? So that means that whatever it costs in order to run that organization is 100% tax deductible, okay? So whatever it is, right, from like office space, utilities, all of those things, okay? So let's just say that it costs 30,000 in order to operate the business trust. That is going to be deducted, and now you have 70,000 left over. Now you have to pay taxes on $70,000. And a business trust is taxed anywhere between 10% upwards of 39%, just depending on the income that's coming in, right? So, one thing that I love about the business trust, like I said, is it's a separate entity from you. So you are not the trust is not you. So the trust actually files a 1041. You as an individual, you file a 1040, okay? So with that being said, you have $70,000 that's up in the air that now you have to pay taxes on. So you can decide very well that you want to pay taxes on the 70,000. Or one very unique thing that you can do with a trust is you can distribute it to the beneficiary. And that becomes 100% tax deductible on the business trust level. And now the distribution goes to the beneficiary, and the beneficiary is going to be required to pay taxes on the 70,000. So what we do is the way that we structure it is we make the family trust the beneficiary of the business trust. Why do we do this, right? Well, if you are a business owner, entrepreneur, your income is coming from the business, but you want that income to flow to the family because that's how you take care of your family, okay? So that is why we do it this way, okay? So now, the beneficiary of the business trust is going to be the family trust. So now the 70,000 is going to be distributed from the business trust to the family trust. So now at the business trust level, we wrote off 30,000 in operating expenses, and then we distributed 70,000. So now the 100,000 has gone out and your tax liability is 0. So now let's move on to the family trust, okay? So how do you operate the family trust? Well, the family trust is an asset holding trust. This is where you're going to hold all of your personal assets that has nothing to do with business, okay? So if you don't have any assets that have to do with, all assets that pertain to business will be with the business trust. Anything personal, meaning your primary residence, your stocks, your bonds, your insurance policies, things like that, all of those things are going to be things, but I mean assets, they're going to be housed in the family trust, okay? So that's where those assets are going to go. Now, your beneficiary for the family trust is going to be your children, okay? So just keep that in mind. So now, the family trust has received $70,000, right? The first thing that happens is you spend the money first, you're taxed on the leftovers. So what does it cost to operate the family trust, quote unquote, your family, right? So there's a lot of expenses, right? You have mortgage, you have utilities, you have maintenance, you have education, like private school, things like that. You have groceries, you have a vehicle, you have insurance, you have medical insurance, you have life insurance, all of these things, right? Let's just say you have a board meeting, and so you go to Hawaii in order to conduct that board meeting. There's so many things that transpire in order for you to actually operate the family trust. So out of the 70,000 that came in, let's just say 60,000 was used for operating expenses, right? So that's 100% tax deductible for the 60,000. You have $10,000 that's left over. Out of that $10,000, you're required to pay 10%, right? The family trust is a for-profit entity. You're required to pay 10%, right? On that 1041 for the $10,000, okay? So that means that you got to pay taxes, and it's going to be $1,000 that you have to send to the IRS, okay? So that is one way for you to actually mitigate your taxes and reduce them. Remember, we said heavy taxation. You want to reduce those taxes, especially if you live in places like California, New York, where you have state taxes, city taxes. They tax you for everything, right? They're literally taking half of your income away. So you need to do something in order to keep some of that income, okay? So now, you have, like I said, you have $10,000 that's left over, okay? You're either going to pay taxes on it, or what you can do is you can donate it. You can donate it to, and that's 100% tax deduction to a nonprofit. That could be a nonprofit of your choice, right? So if you want to send it to your church, if you want to send it to a company that's providing clean water in a third world country, if you want to send it to the Goodwill, wherever you want to send it, the Humane Society, it's up to you, right? Or if you have your own nonprofit, you are able to donate to your nonprofit as well. So we have a nonprofit, right? We have a tax-exempt nonprofit trust. It's what you call a charitable trust. There's other terms that I'll go through in just a moment. You can donate that 10,000 to that nonprofit, and then it's fully deducted, right? And so now at the family trust level, your tax liability is zero. So now let's talk about the nonprofit, right? So you have a tax-exempt nonprofit trust. There's a lot of terms that we use for this entity. We can call it a charitable trust. We can call it a church. We can call it a 508c1a designated trust. We can call it a faith-based organization. So there's a lot of different terms, right, that we can use for this particular entity. Now, the reason why this entity is tax exempt is because of the separation between church and state. So due to the separation between church and state, right, if you wanted to operate this trust that way, then it's a mandatory exception for not having to file for a 501c3, meaning that you don't have to file and be approved and apply to be tax exempt if you're operating it this way as a faith-based organization or a church or a charity. Okay. And so that means that you're automatically exempt from federal income taxes. You can also qualify to be exempt from state taxes, county taxes, property taxes, sales taxes, and any other form of taxes, okay? So that is an entity that you definitely want to utilize. Now, one of the strategies that can actually help you reduce your taxation even further is if you are a W-2 employee, the IRS will allow you to donate up to 60% of your annual gross income to a charity of your choice, okay? Which means that you can donate up to 60% of your salary to your tax-exempt nonprofit trust. So if you generate $100,000 per year, that's your annual gross salary, right? Your income, then that means that you can donate up to $60,000. That would be the absolute max. So if you donated $60,000 to the tax-exempt nonprofit trust, then you are only going to be taxed on $40,000, whatever's left after that donation, right? So instead of you being taxed on 100,000, you're going to be taxed on 40,000. That is going to put you in a position to where you are going to be saving thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars on taxes. And now the money that you're saving that you're actually not giving to the Internal Revenue Code the Internal Revenue system or service, then what can happen is that money you can allocate it somewhere else. So that means that you can put it towards an investment. You can put it towards business endeavor. You can put it towards anything, right? Any type of asset that you want to acquire. So just think about that, okay? So now let's move on to the second pillar, which is credit. So there's two things that I need you to know, right? One is that you need to put yourself in a position to where you're using OPM. OPM stands for other people's money. Other people's money that we're referring to is other organizations and financial institutions. So the first thing is that if you have a nonprofit within your structure, you qualify for nonprofit grants. So keep that in mind. The second thing is that if you have a business trust within your structure, you qualify for business credit, which means that you're able to now leverage a second credit profile. A lot of us, we're so used to just depending on our own credit, right? When you can only go so far with your credit, right? So it's best for you to set up a second credit profile, which is for your business, so that you can leverage that second credit profile, because it is actually it's the reporting is a little bit different, right? So on the personal side, your reporting is your scores, 350 to 850, and they rely heavily on your utilization. So you can't make the type of investments that you want to without dropping your score, right? Significantly. But on the business side, right, the scoring is 1 to 100 and utilization is not affected. So you can run up and maximize and max out these lines of credit and credit cards to acquire these assets, and it's not going to hurt the credit, okay? So the number one thing that I want you to know in this section is, because your business trust is issued an EIN, it can build credit off of the EIN, okay? Just like an LLC, just like a corporation, it's identical. There's nothing different, okay? Let's move on to invest. So with invest, this is, these are the two assets that I recommend. So the first asset is an index universal life insurance policy. The second one is real estate, okay? So let's just dive in to these two assets. So now with the index universal life insurance policy, right? A lot of us, we think that insurance is supposed to be utilized when we are dead. But in actuality, life insurance is supposed to be utilized when you are living. There are a lot of living benefits to having life insurance, right? And I'll talk about those now, because that's when you're supposed to be using it. It's called life insurance, right? Not dead insurance, right? So you need to be utilizing it now, okay? So now let's talk about it. Well, your money that you put inside of these policies, they're going to grow tax-free, okay? So that's one of the extreme benefits. Next thing is that your money is protected in these policies, okay? So in the event of a lawsuit, they can't take the cash that you have inside of your life insurance policies. So that is another benefit, okay? The other thing is, with this type of policy, it builds cash value. So what does that mean, right? Well, every single time that you make your premium payment, a portion of it will go to the carrier, and that's the cost of doing business, right? Or the cost of insurance. And then the other portion of it will go to your cash value. So if you made an insurance payment of $100, 20 of it will go to the insurance company, and then 80 will go to your cash value. So over time, you're going to be building cash value. That cash value is going to be compounding, right? It's going to be compounding. Why? Because it's actually going to be mirroring the market. How is it that it mirrors the market though? Well, inside of this type of policy, right, you see the term index. So once again, it's called an index universal life insurance policy. The word index is actually referring to an indice. The indice is a sector of the market, right? The stock market, okay? So you have several different indices in the stock market. You have the Dow Jones, you have the NASDAQ, and you have the S&P 500. The Standard & Poor 500 represents the top 500 companies in the United States of America. So typically it does very well. So on average, it'll give you about 8 to 10%, okay? And that is on an annual basis, and that's what we're talking about, right? So this is what we're talking about, interest rate, right? So when you have cash value, right, this cash value is going to be compounding. And so what happens is your money that's inside of your cash value that's compounding, it's not inside of the market. It's not directly invested in the market. Why? The market is volatile, okay? The market is volatile and it's considered risky. But what the insurance company does is it will mirror the market, meaning that if the S&P 500 is doing 8%, then what the insurance carrier is going to do is they're going to match that 8% and give you 8% return on your cash value. And so that's what I mean. So now you're going to be earning compound interest, which means that your money is making money for you. That is the position that you want to be in, my friend. You want to be in the position to where your money is making money, to where every single time that you have a dollar, that dollar is bringing back a quarter, is bringing back 25 cents, is bringing back friends, right? Every single time that you decide to park your money somewhere, you need to park it where it's going to be generating, you know, more money for you without you having to work or without you having to trade your time for money. Okay, that is how you're going to start to build wealth. Now, with this type of policy, what we do is we have the trust be the owner of the policy. We have the trust that is going to be responsible for paying the premiums of the policy. And we have the trust be the beneficiary of the policy. Okay, so it's vitally important that one, your index universal life insurance policy is properly structured. Okay, structure is so important, right? An IUL is very similar to you going to a grocery store and you seeing, you know, 50 different cereals in the cereal aisle, right? So you need it to be structured the right way to where you can maximize and build cash value, okay? So we want high cash value, low death benefit, okay? That is the way that you want this policy to be structured if you want to use it in order to build generational wealth and in order to reduce or eliminate debt, right? So like I said, there's so many different benefits, but I can't go through all of it right now. So we'll just park it there. Now, with this policy, you can utilize it to where you are paying yourself first, right? So what I mean by that is you can utilize it to where you are funneling your money in there so that you're building up the cash value. And then one of the unique things about the IULs is that you can borrow from it, right? You can borrow from it. So let's just say it accumulated $5,000, right? And you needed the $5,000 in order to pay your bills. You can borrow from it because it's liquid, right? They're going to look at your cash value. They're going to be like, okay, well, he has $5,000 in there. Let's give him a loan for $4,900. And so then you'll receive that and you're able to park that money somewhere else, right? You can park that money somewhere else to where it's now going to grow even more. Somebody's writing on my screen. Who is it? Who's writing on my screen? Did you guys see that? They just graffitied all over my screen. All right, I'm drinking coconut water. It's my favorite thing to drink. All right, let's go back. Like I said, I have 2 more slides and then we're done, you guys. All right, so you can utilize it you know, you can utilize it in that way. So it's highly beneficial if you wanted to be able to borrow from your cash value. It's still going to remain inside of your cash value, meaning that 4,900, right? So the insurance company is going to do a direct deposit, and they're going to send that 4,900 straight to your bank account, and then you're able to then utilize that 4,900, and you can park it somewhere else, right? An example is real estate, right? And so now that your 5,000 is still inside of your cash value, working, earning compound interest, and it's still going to be growing as if you never touched it, right? But their 49,000, right? They issued you a loan for the 49,000. That money came from their reserves, right? So that money came from the life insurance company's money, and they direct deposited into your bank account, and now you're able to use it to make more money. So now that money, you're using it twice. That 5,000, you have it inside of your IUL, earning compound interest, working for you, and then you've decided to take out a loan and park that money somewhere else. Let's just say it's real estate, okay? So now let's transition into real estate, because real estate is a tangible asset, right? It is one of those investments that will help you produce cash flow, which is generally what you want, right? So how is it that we are going to have the trust estate invest in real estate, right? Well, a trust can actually own a mortgage. So a trust can take out a mortgage on a house. I need you to know that. A trust can take out a mortgage on a house, right? So a trust can own an unlimited amount of property, okay? So there's a particular mortgage that we like. It's called a DSCR loan, right? Debt service coverage ratio loan. That is particularly for investment properties, okay? So you're going to have the trust take out a DSCR loan for a piece of real estate. Let's just say it's a fourplex. All right. And so now the DSCR is going to lend the trust entity 80% of the purchase price. So now you have to come up with 20%. Where is that 20% going to come from? Well, remember earlier we discussed business credit and OPM, which means that you are going to be building business credit, right? You're going to be getting lines of credit and credit cards for the business trust. Now, let's just say that you had got a credit card for $50,000, right? That credit card that you got for $50,000, what you're going to do is you're going to liquidate the credit card, right? You liquidate the credit card. Now you have $50,000 in cash. So the first thing, the first thing that you're going to do is you're going to actually flow that money into your index universal life insurance policy. So that $50,000, you're going to park it into your cash value, right? And now it's going to be earning compound interest. That's the first place that the $50,000 is going to go. And then the second thing that's going to happen is you're going to request a loan. And so now the insurance company is going to take a look at your cash value. They're like, okay, he has 50,000 in cash value, so we will give him a loan from our reserves for 48,500, right? Depending on the insurance carrier, okay? So now they do a direct deposit of 48,500 into your bank account. So your 50,000 is sitting inside of the IUL, earning compound interest because it's mirroring the market. Now you have 48,500 that's inside of your bank account. You're going to use that as that 20% down payment that you need for that fourplex, okay? So now you have the down payment that you need, and guess what? You just acquired a fourplex zero down. How was it zero down? Because 80% came from the DSCR loan and 20% came from the business credit card, right? And so now the money that came from the business credit card, you have it working inside of your IUL, and now you use it as a down payment for real estate. So it's actually working in two different places. One is earning compound interest, mirroring the market. The second one is earning cash flow through real estate. All right. So now you have acquired this property without using any of your own money. That's what I'm trying to explain to you. I'm trying to explain to you that when it comes to you building generational wealth, you do not have to use your own money. You want to use the bank's money. You want to use OPM, right? Because the bank is using your money. Let's just be honest, right? The bank is using your money. And how are they using your money? They are giving out mortgages. They're giving out credit cards. They're giving out auto loans. They're giving out personal loans, right? And a lot of people think that the bank is getting rich off of the interest rate that they're charging for these types of loans and lines of credit, right? But in actuality, the bank's number one investment is life insurance. So I bet you that's something you didn't know. Banks, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, Chase, right? Their number one investment is life insurance policies. It's called BOLI, BOLI. Please look it up. Anything and everything that I've told you tonight, I need you to Google it. I need you to do your research. I need you to do your due diligence so that you know that one, what I'm telling you is true, right? So Google it, BOLI, okay? So that is their number one investment. Now, let's follow the money, you guys. If the bank's number one investment is life insurance policies, what do you think your number one investment should be? This is a question.
Life insurance.
Life insurance.
Life insurance.
Exactly. If the bank's number one asset is life insurance policies, your number one asset for your estate should also be life insurance policies, for sure. Okay. And we'll talk
Being
about
your own bank, right?
what? Oh my God. Listen, he's coming out the woodworks with this. Absolutely. Yes. Be your own bank. Absolutely. Yes. That's what you are going to be doing. You're going to be structuring your own banking system, right? Where your money is flowing in and out of the life insurance policies versus flowing in and out of the bank, right? Because let's talk about it real quick. I love to talk about this. So it's payday. You just got paid. Today, it's Friday, you just got paid, right? What is the first thing that happens when you get paid? I need to know. I need to know.
People pay their bills.
Pay bills.
Mhm.
Pay your bills.
They
Is
deduct.
is that the first thing that happens with your paycheck?
No, they deduct the
Taxes.
deductions before they give it.
The taxes.
Thank
Oh,
you.
yeah. Yes, yes.
I'm an exception to the rule. Apparently I can't get I've been trying to find companies. I'm employable, 100% VA veteran since the age of 29. And I've been denied the life insurance. I've been denied because they say I get the disability money. So
That's why you gotta put in the trust.
that's why I have to do the trust. That's why I'm here on this class. So thank you for your time.
Yeah, and if you can't get life insurance on yourself, then you're gonna have the trust take out a policy on somebody else, right? You're still going to be the manager of the policy. So we'll talk about that in just a moment, but let's get back to this subject. So somebody said, I think it was
I got a
Angel.
question. I got a question. Do the IUL deny you if you get this disability?
So you have to apply for it and you have to get approved. So every single person's specific application is different. You also have to do a medical. So I'm not sure what anyone's specific situation is. Okay, I can't speak on it. But
Is there age bracket?
there is an application process and you do have to get approved, okay?
Is there a specific age?
I think it's like up to 80.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. All right. So now, Angel said it, right? So she said the first thing that happens is that they deduct it. The IRS deducts or does tax withholdings, right? So they do federal income tax withholding. Okay. So you got paid today is Friday, right? The first thing that happens is the IRS withheld taxes. So that means that the IRS is getting their money first before you even see your paycheck. That's the first thing. Now, the second thing that happens is you have Social Security and Medicare that also do withholdings. And the last thing is if you do a 401k contribution. So now that is 4 organizations that took from your paycheck before you even seen your paycheck. So now that they've already taken their shares, you get the leftovers. So now, where do the leftovers go? Let's talk about it, guys. Where do the leftovers go?
Bills.
And
I didn't
into
hear
your
it again.
trust bank account?
It goes
goes
into
to your
trust bank
bills.
account. No, like I'm talking about right here today. If you don't have a trust, where does your paycheck go?
To your
Oh,
bills.
in your bank account. Deposit.
Okay. So your bank account, so your paycheck is directly deposited into the bank. All right. So now it's directly deposited into the bank. It goes straight to the bank. It doesn't go to you, it goes straight to the bank. Okay. So now what is the bank doing? The bank is pimping out your paycheck, right? So the bank is actually using OP,
EM.
other people's money. The bank is using your money, right? So the bank is using your money in order to give out credit cards, mortgages, car loans, student loans, all kind of loans, right? And what are they doing? They're actually getting richer. So the bank is getting richer off of them using your hard-earned money. Let's just be honest. And they're charging, 20%, 30%, these crazy amounts for the interest rates for these financial products, okay? So the bank is getting rich, right? And now that your money is in Wells Fargo and Chase and Bank of America, what is the first thing that you do with that paycheck? What is the first thing that you do?
Pay
Pay
rent,
your bills.
pay bills.
Pay your
Sorry.
bills.
Exactly. So that is the first thing that you do, right? So the first thing that you do literally is you decide to pay bills, okay? So you're going to pay your mortgage, your rent, you're going to put groceries, you're going to put food on the table, you're going to put gas, you're going to pay your car note, you're going to pay your light bill so the lights stay on, you're going to do everything like that, right? And so now that money is going down, 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 down. So by the time you're done, you probably have a few $100s left. You probably have $200-300 left, right? So that money actually went to all these other organizations. That money went to the mortgage company. That money went to the light company, the water company, right? That money didn't go to you, right? You decided to pay them first before you paid yourself first. That is not how you're going to build wealth. It takes a mindset shift, and it takes for you to do something extremely different than what you've been doing. Because what we've been doing is what we've subscribed ourselves to what society wants for us.
A corporation.
Yes. So what has society subscribed us to? They subscribed us to, you go to school, after that you get a job, you work 40 hours a week, you get paid every 2 weeks in order to pay your liabilities, right? In order to pay for living. You work for 40 years. When you retire, you get to retire at 65, right? With either a pension or your 401k, or they don't even offer you pensions anymore. That was a joke, right? So your 401k and Social Security, right? Which Social Security is not going to be available, okay? So with Social Security, right? And so that's what we've subscribed to. So now when we're 65, that's when we're going to have time freedom, location freedom, and financial freedom, right? When you're 65, right? So that's what we've subscribed to. So that is literally what we call the rat race, okay? So we're in this vicious cycle where we're doing this every single day. We're clocking in, we're clocking out, we're getting our paychecks. The IRS gets paid first. Then we go ahead and pay all of these other companies, and then we're just left with $200-300. And what do we do with it? We let it sit inside of our checking account, collecting dust, right? Collecting dust. And what is the bank giving you, right? Because that money is going to the bank. What is the bank giving you? So they're giving you 0.00000 nothing for your money just sitting in the bank, right? So we need to get out of that cycle. We need to get out of the hamster wheel, right? And so the way that we're going to build wealth is by leveraging other people's money, meaning the bank's money, meaning building credit, liquidating those credit cards and lines of credit, and allocating them to investments. And we can get these investments zero down, right? As long as you play the game right, because it is a game, right? So another thing is that you need to put yourself in the mindset to where you're going to pay yourself first. That is how you're going to build wealth. So that money that came in from your paycheck, right? That money, you need to funnel that money into your index universal life insurance policy. You need to borrow it back out, and then you need to pay your bills. Then you need to pay your liabilities.
Game changer.
It's on a whole nother level, you guys. That is how you're going to build wealth. That is how you're going to build it efficiently and effectively, right? And that is how the wealth is going to last many generations. Because one thing that I know for sure is that I hear you walking around here saying that you're building generational wealth, but yet you don't have any of the tools to build generational wealth. There's tools that you need. What are the tools? You need a trust and you need a life insurance policy. Those are the tools. You don't have any of them. So how dare you walk around here saying that you're building generational wealth? All you're doing is making money. All you're doing is generating cash. All you're doing is buying a house. You're not really building generational wealth because you don't have the tools. So if you want to be intentional, get the tools, okay? Get properly structured, okay? So we're about to land this plane, you guys. It's almost 9 o'clock. It's 8:48. Wow. So we ended off with real estate. And the thing that I want to tell you about real estate is those tangible assets can produce cash flow, right? And that's the position that you want to put yourself. You want to put yourself in the position to where you're generating cash flow. So now you just bought a fourplex for no money down because you use OPM in order to get that fourplex. That fourplex is owned directly by the trust. The trust owns that fourplex, okay? So now the trust is actually generating cash flow. That is the position that you need to put the trust in. You need to put the trust in a position to where it's generating its own income, to where it can sustain itself, because you're not going to be pouring in your W-2 income to sustain the trust. That is not the game that we're playing here, okay? So with that being said, now that cash flow that's being generated by this fourplex, right? When it's let's just say it's the first, right? And his rent is due, and then they pay you, right? Your tenant. Where's the first place that you're going to put this money? What's going to happen? Where is it going to go? Where is it going to go?
Life insurance policy.
Who said that?
All
Normal.
right or wrong.
Okay,
I was about to say it too, but I let it take. Yeah, correct.
okay, okay, Palmer. Okay, you guys are on point. Listen, I'm having so much fun on this webinar. I thank you for joining this webinar because I'm having fun. I know you're having fun. We're having a good old time.
Having
So,
the ball.
right. So they are absolutely right. Okay. This is your new way of moving your money and parking it in strategic places to where the money is making more money. Please, I need you to get this inside of your system. You are not going to get financially free by you working so hard for the money. You're going to become financially free when your money is working for you. Please put that in your mind.
We just
And
gotta do before Trump do some crazy mess. Because he already trying to do some crazy mess.
okay,
We
well,
already
we,
talked.
we,
Exactly.
You
we don't talk
protected from
about
that if you
politics
create
here.
your trust. You're
Okay, we don't talk
protected from
about,
that.
okay, we don't talk about politics. I don't, listen, Trump don't stop my money.
Right.
I
All
know
my
Exactly.
that's right.
investments, right. I will,
Oh, that's
listen,
right.
listen, you guys, I will tell you the truth right now. I will tell you the truth. I don't have no reason to lie. Okay? I have not voted for a president since 2016. I don't care.
Because you live
I
in a
don't know.
private. You live in
I
a
don't.
private.
Oh,
You
good
don't
for
have to.
you.
I don't. Because whoever the president is, it doesn't impact my business at all. It does not.
Facts.
And everything is mindset. So if you allow it to, then it will happen. And if you don't
Okay.
allow it to, it won't happen. My business is not even impacted by where I am.
Love it.
I just got back into the United States 5 days ago. So none of that stuff matters. Okay. Now, what matters is that you park your money in places where it's making more money for you. Please get out of the mindset that you have to clock in and out and give another corporation 8 hours of your day. Get out of that mindset.
Money is a tool.
But
Yeah.
okay, the thing is, I'm a truck driver, right? And I just found this out about you right now. So, well, my business is an LLC, but I'm trying to, get a IUL, and then what else? It
Oh,
just
okay.
I'm all
Listen,
over the place.
we have to, okay, give me a minute, Washington, because we got to land this plane, okay? So
Okay.
give me a minute. Give me a minute. I'll open up the floor for Q&A and you can tell me whatever you want to tell me, okay? Thank
Okay.
you. Okay, perfect. So back to real estate, right? Like I said, they said, I think it was Palmer, right? So they said the fourplex is generating cash flow. The cash flow needs to go into the IUL. You need to park it in the IUL. Your cash value goes up. You borrow the money back out so that you can cover the business credit card and the mortgage. Whatever's left over is income for the trust. Okay? Cash flow. So let's move on because we are landing this plane, you guys. My voice is chapped. I'm thirsty. The coconut water ain't really doing it for me. So now, how to actually transfer wealth. I just spoke to you guys about this, right? Where you walking around here talking about you're building generational wealth, right? You need the tools in order to build the generational wealth. So let's talk about what does it look like in order to transfer your wealth. I never even heard you ask yourself that question. Has anybody ever asked themselves that question? Has anybody ever asked themselves, all of this wealth that I'm accumulating or this money, how am I going to transfer it? Has anyone on the call ever asked themselves that question?
Yep.
Okay, we got one taker. So with that being said, what you need to do is you need to put yourself in a position to where you own nothing but control everything, okay? I'm going to say that again because it's so vitally important. You need to put yourself in a position to where you own nothing but control everything. That is the definition of stewardship. Stewardship is where you're not the direct owner, but you're stewarding the wealth in the right direction. You're leading it, you're guiding it, right? You're cultivating this environment, right? So that is so vitally important for you to operate in stewardship versus ownership. Right now, you're operating in ownership. What does that mean, right? That means that you are so fixated on being the owner of these assets, these properties, right? Which is the wrong thing. That is the mindset that you need to get out of. Because a lot of us were walking around so proud saying, yeah, I'm the owner of the house, right? Yeah, I'm the owner of the car, right? I'm the owner of the stocks and stuff. So that is the wrong way of operating. You don't want to operate in ownership, right? You want to operate in stewardship, because at the end of the day, that house that you live in, if you didn't wake up tomorrow, that house is still going to be there, which means that the house is going to outlive you, which means that what you truly want, what you truly, truly, truly desire is to have control over the house while you're living. That's what you want. So that can be achieved through stewardship, where the trust owns the house, you control the house, and no one gets to take it from you. Okay? So now let's talk about the trust, right? So when you set up a trust and you list your children as the beneficiaries, they're going to receive TCUs. TCUs stand for Trust Certificate Units. So that is the unit that they're going to receive in order to represent their beneficial interest in the trust, okay? So when you set up this trust, right, those TCUs, the trust is going to create 100 TCUs. Those 100 TCUs are going to represent 100% of beneficial interest, okay? Let's just say that you have 5 children, right? And you want to distribute the TCUs equally, right? So remember, those are units, right? And so they're very similar to stock certificates, right? So you know how stock certificates represent ownership in a corporation? Well, TCUs represent beneficial interest in a trust, because we don't use the term owner when we're talking about a trust. A trust is a living, breathing entity. You are a living, breathing entity. No one owns you. No one owns a trust. People have beneficial interests in the trust, okay? So use the right terms, but you're going to learn all of this, so don't worry, okay? So now you have the TCU holders, which are your beneficiaries, okay? So if you have 5 beneficiaries and you want to do an equal distribution, so then you're going to distribute 20 trust certificates per beneficiary. So I'm one of your I'm one of your trust certificate unit holders, your beneficiaries. So you just gave me 20 TCUs. So that means that I have 20% of beneficial interest in the trust, okay? Now, if the trust if the trust has a net worth of $1 million collectively between all of the cash that's available and all of the assets and real estate and things, right? It's worth $1 million. If I have 20 TCUs, if I have 20% of beneficial interest, that means that my beneficial interest is worth $200,000 of that $1 million. Okay, so I need you to understand this, because that's how you're going to transfer the wealth, through the TCUs. Okay, now let's talk about preservation. It's 9 o'clock. Preservation is when you, right, when you actually put the things in place in order to preserve the wealth, right? So why is it that we see celebrities, athletes, famous families, Why is it that we see that they make millions of dollars and those billions of dollars do not even make it to the next generation? Or if they do make it to the next generation blows all the money. We see it all the time where these celebrities and famous families, they go broke. Why? Because they did not have the tools in order to preserve the wealth, in order to make sure that the wealth actually lasts the next generation or 2 and 3 generations. Because at the end of the day, you don't only want your children to benefit, you want your kids' to benefit and their kids' to benefit. So you want this thing to go on for 5 and 10 generations. And so if that is what you want, which is true generational wealth, where your legacy, the legacy that you're creating today is actually going to last many generations, and they're going to be very thankful for the hard work that you're putting in right now, then you need the tools. What are the tools? There's 2 tools, and I mentioned it earlier, and I'll mention it again. You need a trust estate. You got to create that estate. The second thing is you need the life insurance policies. That is how you're going to preserve the wealth, right? So let me break it down to you. The trust is going to take out a life insurance policy, right, on everybody. Why? Because the trust has many assets. What assets do the trust have? The trust has a car, and the car has car insurance. The trust has a house. The house has homeowners insurance. And the trust has human assets. You are a human asset, right? Why? Because you're the trustee. You're the person who's managing the trust. Your children, they're beneficiaries. They are human assets. So what the trust is going to do is the trust is going to insure all of the human assets, which means that the trust is going to take out an insurance policy on every single person that is associated with the trust, meaning you as a trustee and all of the beneficiaries, okay? The trust is going to be the owner of all of those policies. The trust is going to be the payer of the premiums of all of those policies. The trust is going to be the beneficiary of all of those policies. Why? Because in the event that something happens to you, the trust is experiencing a loss. The trust is devastated. The trust needs to be compensated for the loss. So that means that that death benefit, so if your insurance policy has a death benefit of 1.5 million, that $1.5 million that's going to be paid out by the life insurance carrier is going to be sent directly to the trust fund. It's going to be protected. And that trust fund is going to be replenished with $1.5 million. All right. And the beneficiaries get to benefit from the trust fund, right? So now that is the position that you want to put yourself in. It's so vitally important, okay? We need to normalize trust fund babies in our community, right? So this is the way that we do it. Remember, the trust is going to take out a policy on you, on the beneficiaries, and on the future beneficiaries. Meaning, when a baby is born into the trust estate, when that baby hits 30 days old, the trust is going to take out a policy on that baby. That baby is a trust fund baby. So now that baby has an index universal life insurance policy. That baby is going to be earning compound interest from 30 days old. That is extremely powerful because let's just say, fast forward into the future, that baby is now 18. Well, what happens at 18? They go to college. They get their first car, their first dorm, apartment, things like that. They got a lot of finances, right? Bills, stuff like that, right? So let's just say that they want to go ahead and buy their first car. Normally, what that beneficiary can do is they can go down to the dealership, they can pull their credit, they can get into an auto loan where they just purchase a car for $30,000 and they're paying $900 a month, right? They can easily do that. Or they have a second option. Because they're a trust fund baby, what they can do is they can go to the trust and they can ask the trust for a loan. The trust can receive loans from the trustees and the beneficiaries. The trust can also give loans to the trustees and beneficiaries. These loans are tax-free. You do not pay taxes on loans. So that is how you can move money around without paying taxes, okay? Now, the trust fund baby came to the trustee and said, I need a loan for $30,000 in order for me to go ahead and purchase my vehicle, right? So now the trustee writes a check for $30,000, hands it to the beneficiary. The beneficiary goes and buys their first vehicle. And now, instead of them paying the dealership $900, what they'll do is the trust is going to charge them a little percent of interest. And so now they're going to pay the trust monthly, right? So they'll pay the trust $300 a month, right? So now the trust is earning, a little bit of interest off of that loan, okay? Now, let's say fast forward into the future, that trust fund baby decides, I don't want to pay the trust anymore, and they default on that loan. That is completely okay. Why? Because the loan was a risk-free loan. Because the money did not come from the trust fund. The money came from the life insurance of that trust fund baby. Remember, the policy was taken out when they were 30 days old. So what the trustee did was the trustee went to the life insurance carrier and borrowed $30,000 of the cash value in that beneficiary from that beneficiary's policy. The life insurance company wrote a check or did a direct deposit to the trust fund for the $30,000. The trustee then wrote a check for that $30,000 and handed it to the beneficiary. Because it was a loan from the life insurance carrier, that money came from their reserves. That money did not come from the actual cash value. So that money does not need to be paid back. So if you take out loans from the life insurance policy, you do not need to pay it back. That money is going to be automatically deducted from the death benefit, which means that $30,000 that trust fund baby defaulted on doesn't need to be paid back. It's a risk-free loan because the money came from the life insurance carrier and it doesn't need to be paid back. It's automatically going to be deducted from their death benefit, right? And so now in the future, when that trust fund baby expires, then that death benefit is going to go straight to the trust, right? So if that death benefit is $6-7 million, that $6-7 million is going straight to the trust fund, okay? So that is the position that you need to put you and your family in, because that is where you're going to preserve the wealth, because now the trust was just replenished with $6.5 million, right? So that's what preservation looks like. Now, these are the books that I recommend, okay? So we are all done. So these are the books that I recommend in order for you to get more familiar with trust. So the first book is What Would the Rockefellers Do? That's a really good book that teaches you about the connection between trust and life insurance policies. The second one is The Art of Passing the Buck, Volume 1 and 2. It teaches you about trusteeship, right? Which is how to operate a trust. The next one is Family Wealth, which teaches you about how to run your family like a business. All of us, we should be running our family like a business, right? So what I mean by that is you are the CEO of your family. Your spouse is the CFO of the family, right? And so that's the way that you need to be operating your household, right? Like an organization. You need to be having meetings, things like that, right? And then the last one is the complete book of trust, which teaches you about the different types of trust, okay? So it's so take action on the information that I provided you guys with tonight. I'm going to show you a quick little clip of an example of one of the trustees that actually took action on the information that I gave you guys tonight.
Well, kudos to you all. Again, Christina, it's been a wonderful experience. I've been looking at your videos on YouTube for a while, and there are a number of people offering trust these days, and I guess that's the big thing. Don't own anything, control everything. That kind of, I didn't say it correctly, but that is the sentiment. And so it seems like the playing field is being leveled now from the rich and people who weren't privy to this information. So thank you for being such a great asset to a community that didn't have this information. And you made it so simple. Thank you for the recordings. Thank you for the step-by-step instructions. Things that we can go back and look at. So we do appreciate you. And thank you, Mondo. That was a great explanation of infinite banking. I know a number of people are talking about that, but they make it so complex. And his presentation was nice and succinct and very informative. So this has been an overall great experience. I definitely will recommend you to others.
So what I want to tell you guys is is to take action on the information, right? Because you setting up a trust can change your entire life. It can change the trajectory of your life. It can change the trajectory of your children's life as well. Because now when you set up a trust, you're going to be operating as a trustee. You're not going to have to be using your name and your social every single time that you're out here doing business. Now you're going to be using the trust, and you're going to be using the trust name and the trust EIN, which is what you want. But you're going to be raising your children to be successors, to be future trustees, right? So that is you changing the trajectory of their life, which means that you are a generational curse breaker. Every single person on this call. That's the reason why you're on this call, because you are the generational curse breaker in your family, right? And so you are needing to take the right steps, right? And so a trust could be your solution. It can be your solution to where now you're properly structured. It could be your solution to where you're effectively generating income for the organization and actually building that wealth. It could be your solution to where now you don't have to pay so much taxes and you don't have to give the government taxes first, right? You can spend the money first, right? It could be your solution to protecting your assets so that you're not sued. You need to take this serious, okay? This is not a game. So don't allow this to go in one ear and right out the other, right? You need to take action on this information because you need to treat it like if it's a big business, not like as if it's some small little mom and pop shop to where it's insignificant, because it's not. Like I told you, everyone is going to end up in probate. So it's up to you if you want to save your assets and if you want to save your family from having to go through that process. So with that being said, what I want is for us to work together. So I do have a program. I'll give you the details of that program, okay? So let's work together, you guys. I have a course and I have a program, right? It's called Wealthy Trustee. And so there's 3 options for you to choose from. I'll break it down to you right now. The first option is for you to do it yourself, meaning that you are able to create these trust entities by yourself, right? So what it comes with is 43 video modules where you will learn step by step on how to actually set this up, right? And I will show you what the course looks like, okay? So inside of the course, right, you're going to get the 3 trust templates, okay? So you're going to get the business trust, you're going to get the family trust, and you're going to get the nonprofit, okay? And what you're going to do is you're going to download the template, you're going to watch the video trainings, and you're able to make changes and customize the template specifically for your family or your business organization, okay? So you do get lifetime access to the course, plus we have resources and ebooks available. So all of the books that I mentioned on the previous slide, all of those books are available for you electronically in our course, okay? Some of those books cost over $800, okay? So you get them complimentary with the program. As far as resources, we give you all of the documentation and paperwork that you need in order to operate your trust. Meaning that we give you, for example, if you need to file taxes, we give you the forms to file taxes. If you need to have a board meeting, we give you the forms. If you need to transfer your house into the trust, we give you the forms. If you need to transfer your car into the trust, we give you the forms, right? So we provide you with everything that you need in order to operate your trust efficiently and effectively. The next thing is that we have a community, okay? So we have over 900 trustees in our community. So we provide you with a Facebook community, okay? So you will have access to all of those trustees, as well as a Telegram chat. So you can be chatting back and forth with the trustees in your community. These are people that you have access to that they've been operating their trust for years. They have their house in the trust. They have their businesses in the trust, right? And they are in the same city and state that you're in. You have access to them. Those are your fellow trustees, okay? And so the course is only $997. The next option is Done With You. Done With You is where we do it together in a group, okay? So just like how right now we're on a group, a Zoom call, it's the same thing. So the workshop is 1 week long. So it's Monday through Friday from 11 in the morning to 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. On Monday, we're going to set up the business trust together, and then we'll dive into Q&A. Tuesday, we set up the family trust together. We dive into Q&A. Wednesday, we set up the nonprofit together, and then I show you guys how to become ordained if you need to and want to. Then we dive into Q&A. Thursday, I show you how to apply for your EINs with the IRS, how to do a board meeting for your trust organization, how to document how much you're going to fund the trust with, and how to take loans from the trust. And we show you how to build business credit and get business funding, OPM. So I have a guest speaker who comes in and educates you guys on the funding component so that you can get the money you need in order to build up the trust, okay? And then Friday, we focus on transferring assets. So if you have real estate, then we will provide you with a quitclaim deed so that you can deed the property over from your personal name into the name of the trust. And then we show you where to record it, okay? So you're going to record it in the county recorder's office. We show you step by step where to record it, okay? Now, the next thing is your vehicles. If you're going to put your vehicle into the trust, then we provide you with a bill of sale for your respective state. If you're going to put your LLCs and corporations into the trust, then we show you how to remove yourself as being liable. So we show you how to do a business purchase agreement so you can document that you're no longer liable. And then we show you how to do the amendments with the Secretary of State so that you can remove yourself as the authorized member. And the last thing that we do is we have our internal team that sets up the IULs, Index Universal Life Insurance Policies. We have our internal team that does that. So our internal team has 15 years of experience. So they're going to come in and educate you step by step on how to set up the IULs and how to connect it with your trust and how you can use the IULs in order to reduce your debt and in order for you to build wealth with it, with the compounding interest, okay? So that is the workshops, okay? The workshops are recorded, so you get lifetime access to the workshops. The workshops are every 4 weeks. The next one is March 24th to the 28th, okay? So you get lifetime access to the workshops. The workshops are they're so I want to say important, but they're life-changing. Why? Because you're going to be in a space with like-minded individuals, and when you're in that space, when we dive into Q&A, those individuals are asking questions that you didn't even know you wanted to know. So you actually learn more. So you want to be in that type of environment. It's extremely powerful, and I can't even really explain it, okay? So with that, with the workshop, you still get access to the course. You still get access to the resources, the ebooks, the Telegram chat, the Facebook community. So you still get access to everything, but you also get, you also get accountability, right? So I hold your hand through the whole process. You get that accountability to know that you actually set up your trust the right way, because after the workshop, you'll book a one-on-one with me, and I'll review all of your documents so that we can cross the T's and dot the I's, okay? So the workshop is only $2,500. And then the last option is do it one-on-one if you want to do private sessions. So with the private sessions, it's just going to be me and you on Zoom. And that typically is for people who have multiple businesses, multiple assets, and they don't want to do it themselves. Because with the course and the workshop, you have to do it yourself. So if you don't want to do it yourself and you want individualized support, and you want us to get you restructured, then we'll do that. So we'll make sure that everything is customized, and then you get extended support too. So the extended support is for us to actually help you acquire those assets for the trust, okay? So the private sessions, if you wanted to do it one-on-one, it's only $10,000. So what you are going to do is, here's our contact information. Let me see if I can get there. So here's our contact information. So you can visit the website, wealthytrustee.com. You can send us an email. You can visit us on social media, or you can call our community line if you have any questions, okay? So now what I want to do is I want to show you what the actual course looks like, and then I also want to show you what a trust template looks like. So just give me a moment, and then we'll open up the floor for Q&A. All right, guys, so this is what the course looks like. One second, let me bring this down. Okay, so this is the Wealthy Trustee program. This is where you'll learn from A to Z how to set up the trust, and how to actually operate the trust, and how to build wealth with the trust, okay? So like I told you, there's 43 lessons here. We are constantly adding more lessons into the program, okay? So with that, you'll start with trust entity, where you'll learn what is the trust, who the contributors are. So who the grantor, trustee, beneficiaries, successors, protectors, the benefits, and the types of trust. Then you'll dive into the tax exempt trust. So we'll break down the actual declaration, the bylaws, the constitution, and how to get your EINs. The same thing with the family trust, and the same thing with the business trust. And then you'll learn about this tax strategy. So how to operate tax exempt with the trust, how to apply for sales tax exemption, and how to determine what like your net income is. And then we go into asset protection, where you're going to take an inventory of your assets to determine what assets are going to go into which trust, okay? And then you'll learn how to open up a bank account, brokerage account, how to transfer your house, your cars, your policies, your businesses, and how to have board meetings. So there's so many people that I see that they're operating entities and they never have a meeting for their entity, right? People, they didn't even know that they're supposed to have a meeting for their LLC. Why? Because nobody taught them, right? And so with your trust, you're going to have meetings, and we teach you and we provide you with the templates, okay? So now the next one is wealth creation. So we teach you how to build credit for your business trust, and then we teach you how to get into certain investments. So we teach you how to invest in index funds with the stock market, and how to do the infinite banking. So be your own bank with the life insurance policies. We show you how to get a crest for your trust. So that's pretty much a seal. And then we provide you with the resources and the ebooks that you need. So this is an example of what one of our templates look like. So everything that you see in red is what you're going to be customizing, okay? So the trusts are, they are very lengthy. So these are all of the articles and provisions that you need for your organization. This is what's going to help defend your assets in court, okay? And so we show you how to customize it specifically for your business or specifically for your family, okay? And that's pretty much it, you guys. So I'm just gonna open up the floor for Q&A. If you guys have any questions, please let me know. You can raise your hand, you can come off mute. I know Angel. Hey, Angel.
Hi, how are you? Thank you so
Great.
much for this valuable information. So I know I typed it in the chat, but I just gotta ask this quick question. So for example, if we buy a program and we get into crypto or the stock market and we buy it in our name, like say I buy it in Angel's name, right? So then when I have to implement it, how do I implement it? Like I didn't buy it with the trust name, so I bought it with Angel's name, right? So how would I put this towards the trust for the money to go into the trust? Like, you know what I mean?
Absolutely, absolutely. Okay. So, for example, if you're using a brokerage, right? If you're using one of those exchanges, then you want to contact the brokerage so that you can change the name on the account. So it depends on the brokerage. Some will allow it, some won't. So for example, specifically with crypto, I know that Coinbase will allow you a to have a brokerage account in an entity name. So you can have your brokerage account be directly in the name of the trust, okay? So that is vitally important. Another thing is in regards to crypto, since that's the example that we're using, is you can actually take those tokens off of the exchange, and you can put them into like a ledger wallet, and you can have that ledger wallet be owned directly by the trust, okay? And so that is extremely powerful, because now the trust owns that cryptocurrency. We have a lot of big crypto heads in our community. And so you'll learn from them because you'll have access to them.
Oh, wow, that's amazing. And I know when I was on one of the lives, I think it was January, um, I was asking about Canada because I'm from Canada, and you were mentioning that in March you were going to have some information um
An
about
international trust.
yeah.
Yes, yes. So we do. So we have an international trust. So you heard me when I said I just came back into the United States 5 days ago. So I was overseas in Central America, getting everything together for the international trust. I don't want to say too much right now, but the international trust is going to be available within the next 90 days. And you can use this international trust in any jurisdiction. So you can use it in Canada, okay? And it's extremely powerful. It's extremely powerful because what you want truly is offshoring. So you don't want to be so fixated on Canada, right?
Right.
You want the opportunity to be offshoring so that you can have, for example, that international trust is going to allow you to open up a Swiss bank account, right? You want funds that you can house outside of Canada, just in case the Canadian government ever wants to come into your account, right? So that is the position that we are putting you in. Why? Because that's the position that we are in, right? And so that's what I meant when I said, since you have lifetime access to the program and to the course, we're going to be adding it in there. So everyone who is a part of the program in the community now, they're going to get the international trust absolutely for free. They don't have to pay for it, and they're going to get all of the instructions, the templates, and everything on how to start offshoring. Okay, so that's going to come. I've already I was out of the country setting everything up so that I can bring it here. Okay.
Okay, so that's also in the basic plan, the 997, like, is that the one you're talking about? Okay, okay. Thank you so much for all this valuable information. It's just amazing.
You're
Amazing.
welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome, Angel. Thank you for being here. Appreciate you.
Appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, next we have Jamisha.
Yes. I just wanted to know when you said when you're gonna make it bulletproof, would that be like would all of them be irrevocable?
Yes, revocable is not bulletproof.
Okay,
So,
so
so yeah,
irrevocable.
it has to be irrevocable.
All three of them? Okay.
Uh-huh.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. All right, next we have D.
Hi, so I was interested in the 508. I'm starting a holistic business, and I was under the impression that the 508 would replace the LLC. Really didn't want the LLC anymore. I'm in California and it's super expensive here. But then earlier when you were saying that you put the LLC and the holding trust, I'm confused. So do I need to have an LLC? Because I was about to dissolve
No.
it.
No, you do not need to have an LLC. So that's for people who have established businesses and they don't want to shut their business down, right? And
Okay.
so you want to continue to maintain your LLC. If you have employees, you have business credit, you have all of this stuff, you're not going to dissolve your LLC. So
Okay.
you're have your LLC be owned directly by business trust. So for you, you can set up the 508 and you can operate your organization under the 508.
Okay. And one more question. With the 508, since it's tax exempt, how would I pay like my personal expenses, like my rent? I don't have a mortgage, like my rent and groceries and all those things. Would I transfer the money from the 508 trust to the family? Or how does that work?
No. Whatever assets that are owned by the 508 become an automatic expense of the 508, right? So for example, if are you renting or do you own?
I rent.
Okay. So then what you're gonna have to do is you're gonna have to document that lease is going to be transferred to the 508, and then the 508 is going to be financially responsible for covering that lease. Okay. And then
Even though it's my personal. I mean, I am going to be working from home, but even if I wasn't working from home with the
yeah,
508 still.
yeah. So one of the compensations is that the trustee is compensated, so their living expenses and their food is compensated.
Okay. What
Yeah.
about
So
other things besides that, like getting my nails done or traveling or anything like that?
traveling, yes. So if you are, so for example, traveling could be for in a car, right? So then all expenses for the car is going to be for the 508. So that's gas, maintenance, insurance, and a car note, right? If you're traveling, let's just say that you travel to Hawaii, right? If you are conducting a trust business, so meaning that you have to at least have a meeting there, then it's all going to be covered by the 508, okay? So you have to make sure that you do proper documentation. So you're going to document that you're having a meeting, or that you're going to go do some type of business, meaning either you're meeting with someone, or you're going to go see land or real estate, or if you have like a mission that's over there, then all expenses are going to come out of the 508. So it's all in the way that you operate. Now, if you have personal expenses, then what you want to do is either two things. Like I said, with the trust, you are able to take out loans. So you'll take out a loan if you don't want to be taxed, and then you're able to use those funds on the personal side for personal things like your nails and your hair, right? Or so that's one way of removing money that is personal, that has nothing to do with the 508. The second way is to 1099 yourself. So the 1099 route obviously is going to require you to pay taxes on whatever amount that you are being 1099.
How would I repay the loan if my income is, let's say I got to a point where my only income was through the 508. So then how do I pay the loan back if the money's coming from there? Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. So the loan terms and conditions is whatever you want. So what we would do is we would document loan forgiveness.
Oh, okay. And is that something I can do often, or is it something that you have to kind of?
Yeah, it's unlimited. There's no restrictions. And all of these things are inside of the provision of the trust. So once you actually, so our 508 is 62 pages. So once you, and one thing that I want you guys to know is that I break down every single paragraph of the trust. So inside of the program, or if you do it live with me on Zoom, I break down every single paragraph so that you understand the contents of the trust, so that you know what you're operating. So what we're talking about right now are actual provisions inside of the trustee powers. So you'll know what your powers are.
So like my apartment building, they're going to let me transfer it from my name to my trust name?
So it depends on the landlord if you want to go down that route. If they don't, then you have to do a board meeting where you're documenting it. So you need to be worried, you need to be focused on proper documentation for your organization. But a trust can actually hold a lease. So the answer is yes.
How many board members do I need?
You need at least 3 board members.
Okay.
They're board of directors, so those are going to be executive secretaries and treasurers and managers.
And do you have to have a board meeting like every single month?
No.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much.
You're welcome, Dee. All right, next we have Corliss.
Hello, thank you so much, Christina. That
You're
was
welcome.
wonderful. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you so much.
I over here trying to take notes.
Yes, I'm so glad to hear.
Okay, so I am kind of like the family representative. So I'm the go-to person for all things wellness, overall financial wellness, whatever. So in getting this course, which one do you recommend, I guess, would be the strongest for, I guess, if I learn, take the course and then have to like show the others, like when we do this trust, is it just going to be for us individually and everybody else in our family, that we want to like set up these trust fund babies for, as we call it? Would they have to do the course as well, or will I be able to learn this information to be able to educate the others, like in the family, like my son, my sister,
Yeah.
like to help them, because they're not gonna necessarily have the stamina, or that's just not their thing. I'm the family representative. So how would that work as far as us like purchasing the program?
That's a good question. So with the program, you're going to get one login. So you can either learn the material and teach it to them, or you can invite them to watch the modules. And if you do it live, you can invite them to the live workshops as well. So for example, in our community, we have like husband and wives, we have like father-son, mother-daughter duos, because these individuals, they are either going to be your co-trustee now if you have an adult child, or you're going to list them as your successor. They're going to take over. They need to know this as well. And so you are highly encouraged to invite them to the trainings, okay?
Okay, my sister Valencia is on here, but she's not a paperwork I'm the paperwork person.
Yeah, we have sister duos, absolutely. So Valencia, she is highly encouraged to attend just to listen, and then you can physically do the paperwork.
Okay, and then teach all the others so down the line, because with the information that we obtain from this, we'll be able to kind of like duplicate it or go and set the others up, like to teach them how to do. I mean, like get them ready for that lifestyle as well.
Yep.
Okay. And then, okay, well then that's good. And oh, the crypto, like I don't, maybe I was reading somebody's comments, is that part of the, like when you said somebody will come in, I guess with the insurance or financial part of it, are those classes kind of like available within or as an option, like to learn those other financial?
So we have master classes every single week. I
Okay.
forgot to mention that. We have master classes every single week where we're exposing you to these financial markets, and we're exposing you to experts in the industry. So for example, our crypto guy, he made $500,000 in one day off of
Okay.
Bitcoin. And so he's the one that's teaching you, right? He's a trader, so he teaches how to trade Bitcoin. But we have other crypto heads in our community too that just buy and hold.
Mm-hmm.
And so they teach you like the platforms, they teach you the wallets, they teach you all how to trade, everything. So we have master classes. The master classes are going to be they're once a week. Usually, sometimes they can be once every 2 weeks. It just depending on an educator being available. So for example, yesterday we had a master class for the community, and it was on business funding, right? So that the community can get the funding that they need. Tomorrow, we have a master class, and it is going to be on the tax forms. So remember, I said that a trust files a 1041. So our CPA, we have internal teams for everything. Our CPA, which you have access to, he's coming tomorrow to educate the community on how to fill out the 1041. So you either do it yourself or he does it for you, okay? So you choose, but he's going to educate you on the step-by-steps on everything, all of the expenses for the trust that are tax deductible and all this stuff. Our CPA does it, okay? So that's a masterclass that's available, complimentary, for free. We don't charge you anything extra. So once you get into the program, everything's free. And
Okay.
and when I tell you, we give you the resources that you need, we really do. So
Okay. Okay. So it doesn't matter that I still work a full-time job right now and I don't have a whole lot of stuff, but I may have more than I think I have. And this will help with the transition to some of those other aspects, like the business and all of that stuff, like creating it down the line. Oh,
absolutely.
okay. Well, thank you so much. That's all I have. You are wonderful. I
Thank
appreciate
you.
you.
I appreciate you so much. Thank you so much for being here. All
Thank
right. Next we have Angel again. How are you, Angel?
Hey, hi, I'm good, thanks. My daughter's just eating here because I've got an open concept kitchen and living room. She's dying to ask you a question.
Yeah, she
Okay,
looks just
introduce your-
like you. Why
yeah.
does she look just
Hi.
like you?
Hi,
Hi.
Nancy. Nice to meet you, Christina.
Nice to meet you too. You guys look like twins. It's
I
kind of
know.
it's
Everybody
kind of
says that.
it's kind of creepy. My kids don't look anything like me.
Oh, wow. Oh my goodness. So I want to start a business, but I'm a Canadian citizen and I'm thinking about opening it a remote US company. But would that be possible to do that? And if so, would I be able to get access to funding in the US like American citizens can get? I've heard that American citizens can get better options for funding for startups for their.
Yes. Yeah, so if you, so for example, like our trusts are domestic, so they're US entities. So if you set one up, then you have a US business. So you can go ahead and open up a bank account in the US since you have a US entity, and then you can begin that banking relationship where you can get loans and lines of credit either directly from the bank, or you can start to build business credit for that entity and then get the lines of credit and credit cards that way.
That's amazing. And can I do it through this system that you're setting up here?
Yeah, yeah. So you can do it. So one of the trusts that are included is the business trust. So if you want to start the US based business, then you would set up the business trust and do all of those things as far as getting funding. And like I just mentioned, we have an internal team that will help you build the business credit and get the business funding because they have banking relationships.
That's amazing because in Canada, it's not so easy to get funding for startups. It's
hard.
very extremely limited here. So that's why I'm thinking of opening an American company.
Yeah, yeah, it's extremely easy, and you don't even, the business doesn't even have to have any money. You can use projected income. So what do you anticipate the income is going to be? You can get approvals just based off of the anticipation of the future income.
I see. Well, that's amazing. How about grants and stuff like that?
Yeah, so US based businesses, they can qualify for grants that they qualify for. So it's just an application process. We have a list of companies that we use that they make it easy for you to apply for grants. So we have a resource for you.
That's amazing. I think I want to sign up for your program. Thank you so much.
Wait. Regarding this, so to open with the U.S. business, does she need to be a U.S. citizen, like get a dual citizenship, Canada and U.S.?
No, so
Oh,
the
okay.
business has to be a US based business.
Okay, so for opening the U.S. bank account, would she have to physically go there, or would they allow her to do it remotely because we're so far?
Yeah, so it depends on the bank.
Okay.
So for those of you guys that don't have access to walk into a branch, I recommend that you go with a specific bank. This bank is called Ally Bank. So I don't know if you've heard of them, but they're a very popular bank, but they're an online only bank. And so everything can be done online, and all you do is just upload. You put in the information, you upload, and then you
Oh,
give them a
wow.
week in order to approve your account.
That's amazing. I'm so happy we found you.
Yeah,
Oh my God. Oh
truly.
my God. So sorry, I don't want to keep up too much time because I know people want to ask questions, but one last thing I want to ask. So the master class, is that only available for people who buy one of the three um products that you were saying tonight?
Correct. So
Okay.
only our students are able to attend live
Okay.
on Zoom.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you
Okay.
so
Thank you
much,
so much.
Christina. It was
Thank
You're
nice
you.
meeting
welcome.
you.
Thank you. Thank
You're
you.
welcome. Nice meeting you too. Thank
Bye.
you. All right. Next we have MJ. MG. Did I say it correctly? You're on mute.
Yes,
Okay.
there it is. No, you
All
pronounced my
right.
name. You had it
MJ.
corrected
Oh,
first when you said MJ. That's how
yeah.
we pronounce it. That's the name my mother gave me. But look here, in regard
That's
to,
a good name. That's
well,
solid.
thank you. Uh-huh. Well, look here, in regard to 508. Now, I
Mm-hmm.
think I read somewhere where it said there was a maximum of $5,000 that you could make. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
you understand? Okay, so explain that to me. Surely you can't, $5,000, the maximum amount of money you can generate in that entity.
Yeah. So that's a really good question. So it depends on, so it's very, and you'll learn this when we, go through it, but it's very important when you're operating your 508 to document everything correctly. So as far as the money or the funds that are coming in, so it's all in the way that you document it, okay? So money that comes into the organization can be either documented as donations, tithes, gifts, or it will be documented as income. So you have to determine how it's coming in. Okay. Now, like 99% of the time, you want to document the money that's coming in as donations. Anything that's a donation, a tithe, or a gift doesn't count towards that 5,000. So now, in order for a 508 is automatically tax exempt. It doesn't have to file the 1041 unless it generates $5,000 or more in income. Donations are not considered income. So you'll read that and understand that. Tithes, like if you're operating a church or ministry, is not considered income. So those monies that's coming in are not counted towards that 5,000. Okay.
So the 508 cannot have investment income over $5,000.
Yeah, so it can have investments. So it can have investments. It can have any type of investments. But yes, if it's over 5,000, then you're gonna be required to file the 1041.
Right. Okay. So what you just said there was that's the only stipulation. You have to find that file 1041. Is that what you said?
Correct.
All right. I guess that answers my question.
Okay.
Mhm.
All right. Next we have conscience.
Hello.
How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. Hi. Thanks for the class. Actually, it's been a mind-blowing thing that I just found out. So my question really is, I think I heard you said that you could appoint somebody to be the grantor for the irrevocable family trust, I believe. But then I did a couple of researches and they said you can't you can appoint somebody to be a grantor. If you do that, you cannot fund it because you should be the one that actually created the trust. So I'm kind of confused how that works, and how I can actually control the trust without being the grantor.
Yeah, so the way that you have to document it is the other way around. So the grantor is the one that's appointing the trustee. So you're going to choose someone to be the grantor, and that person is going to appoint you to be the trustee. Now, the grantor is going to fund the trust with the initial consideration. So typically it could be anything. It could be $1, it could be silver, gold, it could be anything. But initially they have to fund the trust. So usually we'll document like $1. And then from there, the grantor doesn't have any power, any control, any administrative, powers. So after that, they walk away from the trust. So they don't have any responsibilities, and it's the trustee that is fully operating the entity.
Yeah, but I'm the one that has a property that needs to be, uh,
Placed inside the
that to
trust.
place. Yeah, correct. That needs to be placed
Yes.
inside of the trust. The
Yeah.
the, the grantor does not. So how does that work?
So anyone can place assets in the trust. So you can place any asset that you want in the trust.
Okay.
The beneficiaries can place assets, your neighbor, your grandparents, your parents, your siblings, anybody.
Oh, I see. I see. Because that was what got me a little bit confused. But I think you clarified that now.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Next, we have Valencia.
Hi. My sister was the one that just came up there.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask about the
She
IU,
did a
the
she did a shout out. She's like, my sister
IU.
Valencia, I heard her.
I wanted to know about the IULs. Do you
Mhm.
guys offer, if we get this course, will we be able to learn about the IULs too, and which ones are the best
Yes,
ones to get into? I've been
yeah,
kind of scammed a couple of times, meeting people
yeah.
on Instagram and stuff like that. So I wanted to know, do you guys offer that as well?
Yes, we have an internal team with over 15 years of experience. They'll set up the IULs. They'll teach you step by step on every single thing that you need to know about the IULs, everything. They'll set it up correctly. So it's important that your IULs are properly structured. Like I
Okay.
said, IUL is like, going into the grocery store and you just trying to buy pizza, right? There's 50 different brands, right? What is
Mm-hmm.
it that you want? Do you want DiGiorno? Do you want this kind of pizza that? So it needs to be done correctly. And our team, they do it correctly. And they constantly educate you. So like next week we have, is it next week? No, it's the week after. We have an IUL masterclass on Tuesday at 7 p.m. So we're constantly providing you with education and with resources, but the team does it for you. Okay. So they'll educate you and they'll set it up for you, the IULs.
Okay, and one more question. Okay, when she was talking about the course and me and her doing it together, and you were saying that you could bring, like, you have mother, daughter, and son, fathers, whatever. I'm in California and she's in Florida.
Mhm.
So how would that work?
So, however you guys decide to do it, right? So everything is virtually. So you're gonna get
Okay,
access to an online portal. So you'll have a login ID and password. So that's gonna be
okay,
email and password. If you guys decide to do the workshop, then you'll have access to the workshop recordings, and then that is done virtually on Zoom. So you don't have to physically be anywhere. So it's okay that you're in another state because everything's
okay,
online.
okay. Thank you so much. We appreciate you.
You're welcome, Valencia. I
Bye bye.
appreciate you too. So are you in San Francisco? Because I see the Golden Gate Bridge.
No, that's just my background. I'm in Long Beach.
Oh, okay. I thought you was physically right there, girl. I thought you was physically there in San Fran.
No, that's just my background.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I used to live in San Jose, which is like half an hour away.
Yeah,
So
I'm here for work, and then I'm from Atlanta. We're from Atlanta originally. So
Atlanta. Yeah,
yeah.
I'm in Gwinnett right now. So
Oh
I
yeah,
get
you back home. You back
yeah.
home. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
for now until I do a hop to Florida. I'm going to Florida.
So
So,
that's where my sister is. So
yeah,
go right ahead.
I love it. All right, we need to talk.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. All right,
We're
next we have
going in your course. We're getting the course.
okay, woo woo. I'm excited.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next we have Crystal. Crystal, are you available? Crystal E?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, my question is, if you have a business that was actually sued, can you, once that lawsuit is over, put that business into the trust, or can you do it while it's going on?
So it's best for you to wait until the lawsuit is done because they could potentially accuse you of an illegal transfer.
Gotcha. And I was hearing you talk about the Bitcoin. I'm sorry. I was hearing you talk about the Bitcoin. Do you have anyone in the community that deals with the Iraqi dinar also?
I've never even heard of that, so I really can't even answer that question. Never even heard of that. I,
Okay,
I don't
cool.
know what that is. But so like if you get access to the community, then you can ask the other community members. So yeah.
Okay. All
Yeah.
righty. Thank you.
Yeah, there's a lot of our community members, they have like millions of dollars in crypto. So That's what I'm saying. You have access to them. They're only a chat away.
Okay, cool beans. Thanks a lot.
You're welcome. All right, next we have Brianna.
Hi, Christina. I would like to say this webinar is really good. I'm in my early 20s, so I'm trying to start early and get as much information as I could. I have one question. So when we have the family trust own our assets, such as like the checkings account and stuff like that, when we pay like our life insurance policies or bills, will we still operate from the checkings account, or will we have to operate from the family trust bank account?
So if the asset is owned, like for example, the life insurance, if it's owned directly by the trust, then you want it to come out of the family trust bank account, not your personal checking.
Okay. Thank you.
Welcome. All right, next we have Anthony.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah, perfectly. How are you, Anthony?
Fine, how you all doing? So I just
Wonderful.
wanted to be clear now, these the I don't know if you call them workshops, but you say you have these webinars or speakers come on to teach you how to do specific things. Do you have to be in one of your programs to access that video or?
No, so the recordings are available on YouTube. So you have to be in the program in order to attend live on Zoom and to have access to the educators.
Yeah, that's what I meant, the educators. So
Yep,
you have to be in the program to access them.
correct.
Okay, and when do they come on?
So we have one of our educators coming on tomorrow. So we have a schedule and we put it inside of the Telegram and the Facebook. So we make the announcements and then we also do text message and email notifications. So the next one is tomorrow at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It's going to be on Zoom. It's not this link, it's another link that you're going to receive. And tomorrow it's going to be our CPA who's going to be talking about filing taxes for the trust.
Okay, now in the event that you have one of those, I work different hours. So if you happen to have one on hours that I have to work, will I be able to access a recording of that?
Yes, you will. All of them are recorded.
And but to have that access, you have to be in one of your programs.
Correct.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure I understood that. Okay, that's all I have.
Okay, thank you, Anthony.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it. All right, next we have MJ.
Yeah, Christina, I think you've already said that we have to have a minimum of 3 trustees. And I was
Uh,
just wondering, is there any way to get around that having 3? You can't have less than 3 trustees.
Wait, are you talking, so, for the trust, you only need to have, a minimum of 1 trustee for the
Okay, we're
trust.
talking about the family trust now.
Yeah, so,
That was-
for all 3 of the trusts, you only need 1
All right,
trustee. So hold on one second, let me just break it down,
okay,
okay? Thank you so
okay.
much. All right. So for each trust, right, or any trust any trust, right, any trust, the minimum amount of trustees that you need is at least 1. If you do not have a trustee, then your trust is inoperable. That means that
Right.
it cannot operate. Okay. So that's the first thing. Now, 2, because this is a contractual entity that you are customizing, you can decide what your minimum is. So if you would like for your minimum to be 2, then you're going to put it inside of the bylaws and the Constitution that your minimum for your entity is 2. So for example, if you have like a husband and wife, and right now they are operating as 2, and forever the existence of the trustee, they always want there to be at least a minimum of 2, then that's the minimum for that trust. Okay. So now I think that you are asking me about the board. So for example, the 508, you have a board. The board are board members. Those are not trustees. So those are individuals that the trustee appoints to assist. So the trustee is going to appoint an executive secretary to assist with operating the trust. The trustee is going to appoint a treasurer to assist with operating the trust. So your board has to be 3 people, and you as the trustee are considered the first person, and whoever you appoint after that is the second and third member.
Okay, so all 3 have the same amount of voting rights?
Yeah, so yeah, it's just 1 vote. So they all have the same amount of voting rights. So the trustee is the fiduciary. They're the ones who have the administrative powers. The other 2 members, they don't have administrative power. They're task oriented. So you appoint a secretary, the secretary can only do secretarial things.
Okay, all right. And then just to close this out for me, in regard to the private foundation, you said you can have 1 trustee, and then
I'm sorry, MJ, I never mentioned anything about a private foundation. That never came out of my mouth. So
all
a
right.
private foundation is a totally different entity and is not a 508. Those are not the those are not the same things.
Well, I know a private foundation is not a 508, a charitable organization.
Okay.
But I thought I thought we were also talking about having a private foundation as well. You say you never spoke about that, but what is the other trust is what then?
I said a family trust, a business trust, and a nonprofit trust. Never mentioned anything about a foundation. A foundation is not a trust.
Okay, you said family trust. Family trust.
Right.
Okay, I was mistakenly given that a title of a private foundation. So that's my mistake.
Yes, sir.
So I just didn't understand that, you know.
Yeah, they're not the same thing.
Okay. All right. I just have to get some more information and try to understand these differences and what we're talking about here.
Okay. If you have any other questions, you could book a call with me. So the link is inside of the chat and we can talk about it further. So I'm not going to talk about foundations here because that's not what I do. I know about them and I have a partner that will set them up, but that's not what I talk about. So if you want to have that conversation, book a call, okay?
Okay, will do.
All right, thank you. All right, guys, so we are going to wrap it up. Crystal, do you have a question? I see your hand up. I don't know if it ever went down. I'm not sure.
I'm sorry, it never went down.
Okay, no problem. All right. Okay, guys, so we are all done with the webinar. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. So, like I said, just take action on the information that I provided you guys with. And you guys having a blessed and amazing evening. And I hope to see you guys in the community. So bye, everyone. Thank you so much.
Bye.